Hello and welcome to Six Part. Today I'm gonna continue the story What If Deku Had One for All with a Gamer Quirk Part 3. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Mirko and I went out to patrol Hosu for a while after a few hours of battling it out, since there wasn't much crime in the city. At first we both assumed it would be a quiet time. We were mistaken, though, as soon as we started our patrol. 12 hit and runs, 6 muggings, 2 attempted murders, and a cat stuck on a tree. Good shit, kid. Even most pros don't get this much action on slow days. That speed of yours is complete bullshit though, leave some for me, damn it. Mirko said with a loud smack. Though, given my luck, I wouldn't doubt that it will come sometime soon. You'll be there for Stain, don't worry. For now we should just go on as normal since I doubt he'll be active so quickly. I'll give it, at most, a day. My baby. For crying out loud. Are we really acting out the corny scene where the stroller-wielding baby runs into traffic? It seems so, but luckily, at my speed, the cars were moving at a walking pace and the stroller was effectively stopped in midair. I simply threw a gentle Delaware smash at it, shoving the stroller back towards the yelling mother, without even having to move. Mirko looked at my work and said, "Niece, how do you control the shockwave of that anyway? That was way too concentrated to be natural." I simply display my gloved hands to her, with runes engraved on each finger. They consisted of a few forward-directed runes for air bursts and very minor enhancements to energy manipulation and focus. Still slightly in shock at the tiny symbol's complete adaptability, she questioned, "Right. Magical bullshit. And you said they don't drain you or anything?" "Some do, but not by much. The faster ones with AoE abilities tend to cost me some of my reserves, but the slower, constantly active ones get their energy from the environment. Solar, wind, momentum, stuff like that. The two are aka prana and mana." I could sense the hint of sarcasm in her voice as she said, "Tisk, so the green in your costume isn't just for show. What's with the bunny ears, by the way? Were you a fan of mine before this?" She was partially correct, though. They're supposed to look like All Might Sensei's hair, though now that you mention it I can see the bunny look. Kinda appropriate, I'd say, and it's not like I wasn't a fan of you as well. You were my favorite female hero, actually. I confessed to taking her by surprise. "Oh really? Even back then when I was in the high hundreds? I gotta say I appreciate the early loyal fans, but why me? Most guys were all over that hag Midnight back then, and now Mount Lady is the big craze among horny teenagers." She responded with genuine surprise. By this point I shouldn't need to answer that. I guess the simplest way to put it is that I saw you as All Might's female equivalent. Strong, fast, boisterous, and independent, and I'll admit I found you hotter than Midnight Sensei. Was my fascination with muscles? Evidently, Ochako's attractiveness increased with each fitting. I suppose self-discovery is a wonderful thing. To my utter surprise, I managed to make the Battle Bunny blush a little bit. That meant, of course, that she would try to kick my ass the moment we returned to her apartment. I looked at the camera, thinking. Not for long, as I had to quickly avoid a blushing bunny's kick to the head. Considering that this wasn't the first time she had attempted it, I asked casually, "Do I even need to ask?" I eventually became irritated by it and chose to avoid them rather than take them. I was caught in the middle of breaking the fourth wall again. You were thinking something rude. You get a stupid smirk on your face and look out into the distance whenever you do that. I must act quickly to save this. "Hey look, isn't that Manuel-san and Iida-kun? We should go say hello. Try to keep up." I hoped that Mirko would be more upset about being outrun than she was about my rude thinking, by putting some distance between us. "Midoriya-kun. It's nice to see you, but where is the hero you're interning with?" "It was Mirko, right?" Iida asked as soon as she noticed me. A few moments later, Mirko reappeared, kicking much lower than usual. GHK, and it was accurate. In an attempt to block high on reflex, I totally exposed my lower body. In addition, this specific kick was delivered with a running start and gravity assistance, so. -1000 I was momentarily stunned and fell to the ground, damn instant critics. As Manuel sensibly chose to maintain his distance, Iida was trying to console me and probing Mirko about why she did that. I should probably invest in a cup because this is starting to feel like a trend. It was brutal, and I had no doubt that she would follow through on her threat. "That's what you get for ditching me, Gaki. Next time you do that, I'll shove both my feet so far up your ass that you'll have a perfect opportunity to kiss them for forgiveness." Manuel said, "Well, you two are certainly getting along well. What brings you to Hosu City?" Mirko merely scoffed and gestured at me, choosing not to respond. I explained the range of absurd situations we found ourselves in not 10 minutes ago, shocking them into silence. We've come here since it's pretty close to Mirko-sensei's agency. Plus it seems pretty busy today, so it's a good thing we came. Manuel attempted, but was unsuccessful, to whisper the last part. So that's why it's been so quiet since we started patrolling. My god, he really is a mini All Might. I didn't even notice, Manuel exclaimed. I blush a little at the compliments, but I brush them off because I've heard enough of that from comments on the internet. It just has more weight when it comes from an expert. I reply, a few of my previous insecurities leaking through, thanks. Though I'm not sure I deserve that nickname just yet. A booming voice familiar to us came from behind us, sending slight shivers of excitement down my spine at the thought of another spar with All Might. Nonsense, young Midoriya. You're more than ready to be my right-hand man. Didn't I make that clear during the sports festival? Or do you need me to spar with you some more to give you an idea of your limits? The voice said. Goddamn, I still had that express potion. Manuel yelled, pointing to Ochako, who was, in fact, riding on All Might's shoulder. All Might senpai. What are you doing here? And who'd that on your shoulder? Oh, wait, I remember now. You're Uraraka-san, right? Hey Deku-kun. I saw all those rescues a few minutes earlier, by the way. I guess we should add protagonist luck to your list of quirks. Sigh, I was unable to deny it. The gamer only made everything worse, even though my life was bound to be chaotic from the moment I came to terms with All Might's quirk. Oh, you're the gravity girl, right? Good shit during the sports festival. It's been a while since a female hero worth a damn actually did well in one of those. And what's this about a spar that I heard? This I gotta see, or better yet, join. Oh no. With a gleam in her eyes as she saw the tides turning against her, Ochako exclaimed, Mirko-san and All Might Sensei versus Deku-kun? Can I get in on this? Please don't let Iida catch on. An excellent idea. Normally I'd say such a battle would be dishonorable, but a hero's default position is at a disadvantage. And I can think of no one better than Midoriya-kun when it comes to fighting the odds. Oh god, this is actually taking place. Manuel followed the more seasoned heroes without even attempting to speak up. And what was that nonsense that I was always up against the odds? The fact that I defeated a Nomu who was at least a few levels above me and engaged in solo, guerrilla combat with about 40 other students didn't mean oh, who the hell was I kidding? You heard the others. Prepare your tricks, young Midoriya, we're doing this, Asobi be damned. The audience is starting to get into it now that All Might made an appearance along with 3 of his students, one of whom was his successor, another hero in the top 20, and a well-liked local hero. They wouldn't go until I had lost at least a few liters of blood because they smell blood. Until the inevitable hurricane force winds drove them away, whichever happened first. I tried to defuse the situation by pointing at the obviously terrified Manuel. Can we not do this? Or at least not now, we have an internship to finish, plus Manuel is frightened. He was well aware that, in a fight involving me and everyone else, he would undoubtedly fall first or second. I wouldn't win. Perhaps the third, if he was fortunate. He was right. I could already hear the social media deluge. Right. Sorry I got a bit ahead of myself. But I'll be holding you to that, young Midoriya. We need to train together more often, besides the only power greater than my own is the power of marketing. Sorry, I don't know what got into me there. There would be thousands of theories and probably hundreds of bets on what would happen by tomorrow. Given how many strong heroes there are at this point, it would be a miracle if Stain appeared. Depending on how crazy this guy was, I might have made mistakes. Did the odds even concern him? Or was he the kind of person who would recklessly and bullishly charge forward? His kill record and degree of secrecy are unquestionably indicative of his skill and intelligence. Young Midoriya, I see that you've been doing well under Mirko-san so far. Would you like to keep going with her while I train young Uraraka tonight? We have a week, so I think it's best to divide up my time fairly between you two. Thanks for asking. In this manner, instead of having the number 1 stand around and scare Stain away, I would only scout the area with Mirko. Was it true that he was training each of us one at a time, or did he know? In any case, I'll accept it. Alright, young Uraraka, let's go. This city is big enough to accommodate all of these heroes, and we can cover the most ground by spreading out. But wait, was Ochako using All Might's quirk to make him move even faster? That was really terrifying. I had trouble following his movements as he and Ochako shot into the air, leaving a loud boom behind for style points. So, when were you going to tell me that fucking All Might was going to show up and challenge you to a fight? Answer correctly and I might just let you live. Those baskets of crap. Countless ass-kicking attempts and several hours later, The latest attempt to kick me in the face by a bored rabbit finally breaks me. Woman, will you stop kicking me? She did it because we ran out of options at this point and wasn't even angry anymore. Never, Mirko retorted without missing a beat, unleashing a torrent of kicks that looked like a Chun-Li. She persisted even after it was obvious that I had lost interest in the fight and had stopped blocking, accepting every kick and depending solely on my healing factor to keep me fueled. When she realized I wasn't getting hurt, she asked, "Are you trying to make me angry?" and finally stopped kicking. No, there's just no use blocking your attacks anymore. Hours of taking them over and over again sure did the trick. Remember, I have an adaptation quirk. Add 2 plus 2. Indeed, I have gained a significant amount of points in End, and some in Wis, too, since I suppose it took wisdom to predict patterns in her fighting style. She was also a little upset that I picked up the fundamentals of her fighting style so quickly. Bullshit quirk. Bullshit learning ability. Bullshit affinity for kicks, she exclaimed. Although it was a legendary skill, the first 20 or so levels were rather simple because it was essentially modified kickboxing. After I started incorporating OFA into the style, 10 more quickly followed. I answer, letting Mirko vent, "You're not wrong. I'm fully aware of how unfair my power is, hence the consensual beating." Instead, she just gave me a strange look, and I realized that I had done it again. Oh, for fuck's sake. Gods damn it, I don't kink shame. To each their own. I was waiting for that first joke to come back to bite me, so I deserved that. But if you think I'll get you off on the first date, you got another thing coming. I decided to explain after noticing her puzzled expression. Fair enough. I got to ask the others about their thought anyway. Can't just show up with a pro-hero girlfriend out of nowhere, can I? I said. In the hero community, my relationship with the other girls was actually fairly well known, which paradoxically increased rather than decreased my popularity. Sometimes I don't understand people. She yawned and said, "Guess I'll add bullshit harem protagonist to your list of quirks. Whatever, I'm going to bed," before making her way to her bedroom. I looked at the time and said, "Already? It's barely 8 p.m. Fuck off. I don't have infinite stamina like some people. I just spent the last 5 hours straight attempting to beat the shit out of a brick wall. I'm gonna sleep like the dead, and if anything wakes me up a single hour earlier, there will be hell to pay. Her legs are going to kill her when she gets up." In relation to that, I still had 6 hours of daylight left. I had two options. Either spend a few minutes rushing back home to UA, or just sleep here and go to school in the morning. Since I preferred not to be here when Mirko woke up, I made the decision to go to UA right away. It only took me a few minutes to get ready for bed after arriving at the makeshift room UA had prepared for me. That day is tomorrow. Then I'll tell All Might about my plan, but for now I should get some rest. I fell asleep pretty quickly. Mirko was only partially correct. My physical endurance may be practically limitless, but the mind could only withstand so much before it became fatigued. It was going to take some getting used to waking up after only 6 hours of sleep. I was fine mentally and physically, but it was still quite difficult for me to adjust to the sudden change in my sleep cycle. Luckily, a battle akin to guerrilla warfare between two superheroes was more than sufficient to quickly rouse me. Granted, since the gamer is a jerk and we already knew half of our teacher's patterns, it was a lot simpler this time around. Not to mention my extra end points, which greatly aided in maintaining my endurance compared to the previous time. Considering everything, it was understandable why we finished our task in half the allotted time. Ochako was then taken away for solo training, but something about Midnight's statement made me uneasy. I spent the next 3 hours by myself with All Might as a result. Hours that we maximized in every way. And what better way to get ready than by leveling up with potions that boost performance? Experiencing potions? Once, perhaps? Battle POV and ground beta minus 250, only 250, huh? I'm growing more powerful. These were my feelings following yet another blow to the face from All Might. Even though he wasn't trying his hardest, it was still a huge improvement. In terms of advancement, I ought to be able to manage a greater proportion at this point. Let's examine. I took a boxing stance and charged up OFA to 50% using the distance All Might's punch gave me. Even though it's manageable, it's not very pleasant to think that my muscles might torn apart at any higher elevation. I finally caught up to All Might in terms of speed at this percentage, which appears to have taken him off guard. As I charged straight towards my mentor, I instinctively cocked back a punch that All Might attempted to grab. With a slight smirk on my face, I launch myself over All Might's head with a fully charged Delaware smash from behind and land a foot first into his back with another crescent smash. I slammed into his broad back, a little squirming as All Might spit out a bit of blood. With gritted teeth, All Might uttered. And not bad, young Midoriya. Taking some moves from young Bakugo, I see. He was unaccustomed to facing a rival who could genuinely stay with him for an extended period of time. Kacchan was a partial inspiration, but Mirko-san was the main one. Her fighting style relies on maneuverability via her kicks. With my Delaware Smash, I can simulate Kacchan's explosive momentum, so I thought, why not both? It was certainly effective enough. Good work nonetheless, and about your plan to take on the hero killer. I can't say I approve completely, but this would be a good chance for you to take out your first real villain. Wait, wasn't Nomu included in the equation? Besides, with Mirko-san there you have more than enough backup. I'll make sure to stay clear of Hosu City for the next week. To be quite honest, I didn't think he would accept my plan so quickly. Stain's guerrilla tactics and stealth skills allowed him to get away with most of his kills, even though I could understand his reasoning. Two things that were significantly lessened by the absurdity of Gamer's body. Smash. -500 stupid brain. HRK. Damn it. Stop nodding off in the middle of an all-might battle. For me, this was not going well. It's time to perform my finest job. Make do. Because I was inexperienced, the little prana I did have caused relatively small stabs of pain, but I ignored them and spread it slowly but surely throughout my skin. My skin was no longer exploding, at least. Strengthening. LV2. Maximum statistics. 2 per object. Costs. Varies. Caution. Using too much mana may damage the target. Level of control. Minimal +2 end per level +1 STR per level. Increases the chosen statistics of any object the caster chooses by 2 times. 1-1-1-1-1 to 1 strengthened Detroit Destroy. After noticing the name change, All Might decided it wouldn't be wise to hold back. He matched my punch with his own powerful Detroit Smash, and together we blasted a crater several dozen meters wide and deep into the concrete. My arm also exploded, but that was incidental. -1500, young Midoriya, I think we should take a break. I'm getting to the point where I'd rather not rip off your other arm. No longer in his muscular form, All Might proclaimed, cradling his ribs and doing his best not to glance directly at the stump of his successor. Yes, that is undoubtedly a wise move. I managed to say, gee, good fight, before spitting out a good deal of blood. Yes, I needed to get used to using reinforcement magic before using it on anything more important than my skin. Rest up, young Midoriya, you'll need your stamina for Mirko-san's internship, and to regrow your arm, of course. Well, that was going to be awkward for a while. That or I finally figure out how to avoid getting seriously hurt in training. Hopefully, losing a limb will eventually lose its shock value. Well, good luck with that. That is, after 2 hours of studying anatomy. Not to mention the obvious point in int that I gained from the material, I now know far more about the human musculature system than I ever thought I'd need to. On the plus side, that knowledge raised my Jeet-kun due by a few levels, so that was nice. Even though a regular quirkless human's muscles could launch them several meters into the air when struck by lightning, the thought of that happening to someone with All Might's strength was terrifying. Note to self. Gain some kind of electric ability. Instant win condition against anything short of All Might's strength-wise. It would not do to aggravate the sore battle bunny anymore. Maybe I could help her with the muscle pain? Would enhanced healing translate to reduced pain? Experimentation required. Nightmare-level battles aside, I think it's about time for me to head to Mirko's place. Did I mention that I loved magecraft? It's just so damn versatile, and being able to gradually but surely learn the limits of the art was a dream come true for this quirk nerd of mine. Actually, now that I think about it, the same could be said for his life as it is now. One could imagine, for instance, strolling in on a very toned, pro-hero, busty, bunny girl who was stretching and massaging her legs to relieve the pain I had caused her the night before. Wow. I didn't even have to wait a year for the corruption to spread. By the root, I didn't even realize it until I finished that sentence. Tisk, you're back on schedule. With a hint of jealousy in her voice, she said, hurry up and get into your costume. I have the undeniable urge to punt something into the sky and I ain't waiting for you if you take 2 right. Bullshit quirk. God, that would be useful for getting into spandex. She stopped halfway through. I assume you're still upset about yesterday's lack of response and the leg ache. I scribbled some new runes on some sticky paper, healing, sensory inhibiting, self-perpetuating, mana-powered runes to be exact. I attached it to Mirko's stomach and waited, watching. Now, let me try something, I said. More magic nonsense? She asked, staring and prodding at the talisman on her stomach. I don't feel any different. Give it some time. I use those kinds of runes to increase my healing capacity, so I expect them to act. After hearing my argument, Mirko decided to keep it on and proceeded to put on her own superhero costume to start the day. Right in front of me. It just takes some time because most people can't regenerate limbs by default. Are you serious? As Gamer's mind went into overdrive trying to keep me coherent, I managed to say, blushing profusely. I don't hear you complaining, she teased, and I was not complaining at all. Hell, Ochako would never let me hear the end of it if she discovered that I had passed up the chance to watch Battle Bunny change right in front of me. If I saw a version of myself turning my back on this divine sight, I would punch him in the face on principle. Not a stutter, no nosebleed, and still conscious. It's not bad, you just joined the, actually a man, club. She could thank her girlfriends for that one. Gamer's mind was awesome, but their increasing vulgarity made me more sensitive to attacks like this. Not to mention those sparring matches with Midnight. Let's head out. We should warm up now that I have a good feeling about tonight. How come your arm is pink, by the way? Observing the recently grown back flesh, she inquired. Earlier today, All Might and I got into a fight. It's a hero's life, I suppose, when I get to throw myself into the fray again. I got my arm blown off, no biggie, I said nonchalantly, earning myself a sweat drop from the pro hero. And I know what you mean, I can't help but feel like today's the day. Time hopped to 10 p.m. while riding a subway car. 3 Nomu were currently rampaging across Hosu City, and the heroes were trying desperately to push them back, but all I could say was that everything was on fucking fire. Squish. Actually, there were 2 Nomu currently rampaging across Hosu City. Frankenstein freaks, tisk. Listen up, couldn't even take a single kick like the last one, I complained as I kicked the green monster's brain remnants off my shoes. Don't resist these Nomu. They're nothing more than living, breathing monsters. Ranged heroes should try to clip that flying Nomu's wings by positioning themselves behind defense-based heroes. Fight the white one that is rerouting emitter attacks. Mutation types. I gave the order, startling the heroes in the vicinity out of their stunned states of mind as they obeyed because, to begin with, they weren't performing all that well. Well, that should take care of these little annoyances. I have to go find Iida. This kind of situation is the perfect diversion for an assassin. I moved quickly, staying on the rooftops and not bothering to stop when a single second could mean the difference between life and death. There, I heard a faint ringing noise and saw a flash of steel in the distance. With a powerful kick, I charged at the armed villain, outpacing him in speed as I parried a relatively light blow and lunged straight for the blade that would soon pierce another hero's skin. Crack. Smash. To his credit, Stain was able to quickly rebound and unsheath another blade in response to my arrival, making the villain's blade shatter on contact and sending the killer several meters back with the residual force of my punch. I accomplished something I've been wanting to do for my entire life, grinning to myself a little. Have no fear, fellow hero. Since I am actually present, I shouted, letting my opponent know right away who I was. To put it mildly, Stain's reaction was unexpected. Thus, the heir to the real hero has emerged. Okay, I'll put you to the test, kid. Prove to me that you are worthy of his title. I felt his intent to kill and compared it to that of my own mentor. His grin was manic, his eyes bulged out, and his whole body tensed as he stared at me with unwavering determination in his eyes. All right, then. Not that I'd really need it, if I was being honest. No, don't get cocky. This guy was no amateur after all. And with that quirk of his I could go down if I'm not careful, I thought to myself, analyzing him the moment I saw him. I hope I don't disappoint, I replied, using the banter to send a signal to any heroes nearby that could spare the time. Chizome Akaguro. Stain level, 65 age. What? 1500 HP sulfur monophosphide. 3000 STR. 105. AGI. 250 End. 150 Int. 40 Wis. 20. Shaw. 150. This fight would not be easy, and this guy was not normal. Stain was lightning fast, almost untrackable by the human eye from this distance, at least, not for a normal human. And I had no time to get ready as he charged at native with no build-up, blade in his right hand and his left hand probably poised to draw another bladed weapon. Smash. Crack. Okay, so if I could do that in less than a second and from several hundred feet away, why did you think it would work when I was alert and within visual range? Was he merely gauging the situation, attempting to lower my guard? In any case, what was his peculiarity anyhow? Take caution. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but when he cuts you, his peculiarity paralyzes you. I've been stuck here ever since you came. I understand now. Keep the reinforcement up at all times. The wounded hero. Native, my analyze skill informed. Helpfully filled me in on what I was up against. Oh, there he goes again. This time, though, he charged straight at me while brandishing a knife, and for some reason, he kept one hand hidden behind his body. Considering that I had twice his AGI score without support, all of this was happening at a speed of 0.5x. I deflected the blade that was aimed at me into a nearby building and assumed a waiting position, testing the waters for myself. Crack, not bad, you managed to actually cut me this time. I taunted, showing him my paper-cut-sized wound which closed immediately after. It hadn't even bled since none of the capillaries were cut, just the epidermis. To my great surprise, it actually managed to pierce my skin as I tried to grab the blade. But not my muscle tissues. Hee ha ha ha. Amazing, amazing, amazing. All Might is only human enough to get sliced by a knife. The one and only real hero bleeds just like any other man. But now look at you, possessing equal parts strength, speed, durability, and intelligence. I gave him a raised eyebrow, to which he responded with a sneer. Don't pretend that I haven't noticed you following me around. Always picking up on my attempts at deception. Never allow that pretend hero in your rear to escape notice. You're good, that's what I'll give you. Almost too good for someone so young. As it stands, I just shifted the conversation. If that compliment hadn't come from the mouth of a psychotic killer, I would have been flattered. And just what has this guy done to merit such animosity? I apologized to Native, who was staring at me with a deadpan expression, after realizing what I had just said. I haven't even heard of him, and I'm a huge hero nerd. Some taken, though I guess I shouldn't be too surprised if my competition consists of all Might level heroes. Stain attempted to attack Native again while I was preoccupied, throwing blades at his right lung, heart, and jugular with each throw, and the killer himself was swinging a full two-handed swing at me while brandishing a rusty katana. The word, should, here is important because a quick Delaware smash sent the three blades flying off course, while a 5% Detroit smash should take care of the approaching rusty blade. Minus 650. I exclaimed as my whole arm was cut off from the elbow down, blood gushing everywhere. California smash. I attempted to knock Stain out with a second blow, this time at roughly 50% power, in an attempt to stop him before his quirk rendered me helpless and paralyzed. Stain. Hydrogen phosphide. 301,500ths, 2 broken ribs, light bleeding, minus 1 horsepower. Was it a cha buff? Partially correct. Thank you for the meaningless. Not, confirmation voice in my head. Shit, I didn't kill him, did I? That kind of damage could lead to shock and blood loss. No, my body's completely immobile, I can barely move my facial muscles let alone anything else. He's still alive and conscious. Somehow. What kind of willpower did this guy have? His end wasn't even that high. Staring at the stump where my left arm used to be, I thought, my arm isn't healing. A debuff? What the hell was that weapon? Refraction of longevity? Damn, it's gonna be there for a few hours. At least I'm not losing any HP from the blood loss, but this is going to be annoying. Stain managed to spit out the words, along with a good deal of blood, as he used a different random blade to balance himself because the previous cursed blade had been lost in the earlier tornado. So it actually worked, who would have thought? How did you find that? Who handed it over to you? Are you even aware of what you're doing here? Power like that was not intended for just anyone. It might have been my amputated arm speaking, but for some reason, having someone perform rune magic on me felt intimidating. You talk about it like you've dealt with it previously. No, as though you were well acquainted with this peculiar ability. Interesting, stammered Stain, spitting blood as he spoke. To be honest, I was only mildly impressed by his ability to move despite his injuries, but I would later come to respect his resolve. Avoid taking any more steps, or the smash won't be as weak as the previous one. I lied in the hopes that he wouldn't catch me red-handed. You're going to be paralyzed for a few more minutes, bullshit. You could use a few more years to develop into a true hero, but nice try, kid. Shit. I stick out my tongue in a show. I positioned it against my teeth for a flick with one of the few remaining muscles in my body. Stain stated matter-of-factly, really? A tongue flick? You do realize that if you try that in your condition you could very well die. Perplexed by the notion that his life could be at risk due to a teenager's speech. That didn't sound right. I gritted my teeth to Stain's deranged delight, and if I don't you'll kill Native. What kind of a hero would I be if I wasn't prepared to take a risk for the sake of saving a life? I took my shot because Stain charged at Native and said, "Well said boy," and I fully agree, though, fortunately, I didn't need to because Stain was kicked by a well-known leg just as he was about to reach his target. He barely seemed to hear me as he glared at the hero killer. Aida-kun. Nice timing. Stain has a paralysis quirk relating to blood, most likely via ingestion. Don't let his injuries fool you. He's still faster and stronger than most. Though that last kick seems to have put him on his last legs. Pun not intended. OSH*T. He's going all out for vengeance. Stain was not amused by this. Thank you for the information, Midoriya-kun. Don't worry, I'll finish him off myself, then he'll never hurt anyone else again. Admittedly, the way Iida phrased it. With his sarcasm fully engaged, Stain exclaimed, "You plan to kill me? How heroic. That armor, it reminds me of another false hero that met my blade before. Are you here for some petty revenge?" He was attempting to fool him. Iida was going to be easily manipulated by Stain, who was a master at it. I saw Iida tensing up, so I yelled my disapproval before he could move. "Iida, don't you dare go charging in. You're better than that. He's just goading you, begging you to lose yourself to rage and play right into his hands. He can't go on the offensive, his injuries prevent that. Stand your ground." That helped him a bit. At most, all I could hope for was that he didn't come charging in. I used that time to examine myself and discovered that I had 2 timers set, one for a few minutes and the other for several hours. In light of the recent events, I had a strong suspicion as to what each one represented. Just give me 2 minutes, that's the time limit for his paralysis quirk. How the hell did if they were being honest, because I'm Izuku fucking Midoriya, that's how, was as good an explanation as any. His name was now instantly associated with bullshit abilities that appeared to be random. Midoriya-kun. Language. I glared at him. When it literally came down to life or death, only Iida could make such a big deal out of a little swearing. Iida's rational side took over for the time being, though he was still overly preoccupied with the secondary goal. And thank you. I almost lost myself there. You're right, what really matters right now is to bring Stain down with absolute certainty and no casualties. Once again you prove my point. A real hero would have been focused on saving that guy and his successor instead of taking me down. Native was a little offended, saying, "Did you just forget my name? Minutes after we said it?" Stain gave Native no grief and gave him the straight scoop. "I'm gonna be honest here, you were an attack of opportunity. On my list of heroes that need culling you're like 200th place or so. It gets hard to keep track of names that high up. Native is considering switching careers right now. I tried to be diplomatic, which earned him some blood on my shoes courtesy of Stain. Can we stop bullying Native and address the fact that you should surrender? I'm fairly certain that you have at least 2 broken ribs, a concussion, and several broken bones. That was just impolite to say, well screw you too." Iida looked at me and said, "How much longer, Yugi-san? Hero names these days, huh? It seems that I should also call him Tenya." The best method to divert a fanatic was to get him raving about his principles. 15 seconds. Thanks for distracting him with that revenge talk, by the way. Hold on. Iida's eyes were on me. "In that case," Tenya said, "wait, don't look awa." But he wasn't listening to her. Tenya Iida. Hydrogen phosphide. 200/640ths. Severe bleeding in left leg. -2 horsepower. All I could say was, "Tenya, you had one job," before Stain charged Native one more. I was ready to pull off my last bold move to try to stop him, but to my great luck, a new opponent showed up. This one simply froze Stain solid from the neck down, skipping the customary dialogue in the process. Just to be sure, before he got his face burned immediately afterwards. Stain. Hydrogen phosphide. 10/100ths, cauterized injuries. Burns that are medium. Unconscious. I have never been happier to see this beautiful bastard than I am right now. Shodo-kun. Remind me to buy you the best soba in Japan later. Shodo said with total indifference, I need to hang out with this guy more often. Now who was it that I froze solid and why did he stab Iida-san? I'll hold you to that, Yugi-san. I give him the credit for the killing blow, as it were. Hero killer. Congrats by the way. Yes, this is Todoroki once again, awesome as usual. Unexpectedly, a feral Mirko materialized and struck me in the face with a terminal kick once more. -300 she made an effort to appear calm. Yo, what did I miss? Okay seriously. What did I miss? She exclaimed as she noticed the human popsicle standing right next to her, along with the still paralyzed D-lister, her limbless intern, and 2 more heroic students, one of whom was also hurt. I muttered, face down in the concrete, Mirko, I'm not holding back the next time we spar. Until my paralysis eventually stopped and I was able to stand. Pointing at the mini glacier, I concluded, and the hero killer. You missed the hero killer. She shrugged her head sheepishly and said, well shit. Guess I shouldn't have spent so much time fucking with Endeavor. Shoto said, you're forgiven. Right away. Iida and Native were fine for the time being, but that blade was far too dangerous to leave alone. No you're not. Also, will one of you two help me find something? Stain had this rusty-looking sword that I need to find. Mirko asked inquisitively, why would you care about some random-ass sword? All I could do was gesture with my severed arm in response. She said, sounding for once sincere in her concern, aw shit, that isn't permanent is it? Forward motion. I examined the blade as soon as I saw it, thinking, thankfully no but it will last for a few more hours. Hopefully that will tell you just how dangerous this thing is. Here it is. I was getting paranoid, and neither its name nor its description helped. Or was it just common sense after what transpired? A B-class mystic code crafted from the remnants of an authentic noble phantasm, the fragment of Bidhi. L. Although modern magic has made this weapon feasible, it cannot replace the real thing. Negates the effects of non-magical healing. I need to do some serious research. Asobi was correct. Things were becoming more difficult. Police sirens in the distance. Asterisk one thing's for sure, I'm not the only one who could use true magecraft. But first, I had to give the authorities an explanation for this nonsense. Could I please get the insane serial killer back? To be honest, this fight was a little too linear. Sincerely, not much more could have happened. If not for the handy new magical plot device, Stain would have had very little chance of emerging victorious in this one. Stain was stable for the time being, but his HP was still only 10 out of 100. Frostfire. Thaw him out. His wounds are cauterized so he should be fine, but I'd rather not have him die of hypothermia after all the trouble we went through. I returned to my serious mode. If we weren't careful, basically anything more powerful than a dog bite would kill him. I move in closer and give Stain a quick kiss on his forearm, causing the other people to look at me with shock and confusion until they realize that the killer's wounds are closing completely and that his face is once again colored. Yugi-kun. What are you doing? Why would you heal him after everything he did? Iida yelled, unwilling to help the villain get back up so quickly after defeating him, following the demise of those heroes or their crippling at his hands. That blade we found earlier was able to cut my arm off. Before using that, he couldn't even cut through my skin. I can't allow something like that, or whoever supplied him with it, to roam free. Even if it was a unique item, most people would die from it. Questions must be answered, and no, they cannot wait. Since most wounds took weeks to heal rather than hours, this weapon wasn't even very lethal, and the anti-regen was pointless. But if they produced a mystic code centered around combat, my spine tingled at that. The logic was undeniable by the others, and since there were so many Nomu around, friendly fire was a real possibility. Besides, the League probably didn't want Stain to divulge any secrets. Consider the devil, I thought to myself as a Nomu began to fly toward us. It may have seemed to be moving rather quickly to anyone else. However, it seemed to be dive-bombing us at a pace that made Stain appear extremely powerful. It was taken out of the air and its body remained in a dazed state in a nearby building after a swift 50% Delaware smash. And since I had then thrown one of Stain's blades directly into its exposed brain, it would stay there for a good while. I say absently, oblivious to the other heroes gawking at me in disbelief at how easily I dispatched the flying nuisance. That's two of them. The only one left would be the bulky one. As he rounded a corner and saw his target dead, Endeavor cried out, "Where the hell did that flying nuisance go?" Alright, I'll have to give it a different name or else I'll come across as the flaming douche. Why was he looking so shocked? I took care of it. Since you're here I can assume the bigger one is already dead. Well, he's staring at my stump, so it's not like taking down that cannon fodder was all that difficult. It makes sense. I waved him off, only to surprise him more when his eyes snapped to the unconscious Ninja Turtle reject lying next to us. Yeah, Stain over there had some special weaponry, don't worry though, it should heal by tomorrow. His low mutter, barely audible to most of us, was enough for Shoto to smile at his father's frustrations. Lucky brat. For once, we agreed on something. Whatever, the police should be here at any moment. Tie him down, I don't want any surprise escapes. And we were allowed to go along, since we were the heroes directly involved in his capture. Or me, Frostfire, and Mirko were. Since my healing factor was well known and I was no longer bleeding, I was given a free pass while Tenya and Native were too injured to do so. The police station 2 hours later. I finished telling Tsukachi my story, and he sweated at having creatures who could take on multiple pro-heroes, each referred to as Small Fry. And that's basically what happened. Luckily the League didn't have anything close to what the USJ Nomu was, so we managed to take care of the small fry easily enough. The worn-out detective said, almost regretting taking on the role of lead investigator for anything League related. You know, if it were any other person, I could have sworn that my Quirk was going on the fritz. But knowing that you're All Might's successor let me prep for the type of unique nonsense that seems to follow you too. Really, it's magic. Enchantment. Aliens. What was next? He had to be absolutely certain, in case he needed to make some quick legal maneuvers to keep me safe. I have 2 questions left. First, did Mirko specifically give you permission to use your Quirk as you saw fit during an emergency situation? He asked. He got a thumbs up for his response. If anyone needed protection from such things, it was the detective with the peculiarity of a lie detector. And finally, is there any hypnosis-type magecraft? And if so, is there any way to protect against it? There is and there are. I don't know how to perform any of the countermeasures at the moment though, so I'll need some time to develop that. Give me a week and I'll see what I can do. For now just try to keep the topic out of your head as much as possible. Distract yourself. Maybe take a few vacation days. Stuff like that. Mages can only read surface thoughts on a whim. Anything deeper requires more work. It wasn't flawless, but it was the best we could come up with. I'll keep that in mind. The overburdened Japanese man gave the advice careful thought. Pop. What echoed through the walls was, I could only assume, a sonic boom. That's probably All Might. I should tell him everything that happened. Have a good day, Tsukachi-san. I say a prayer and leave. I have a strong feeling that I will soon be having a bear hug. My baby, was what I expected to hear from my mother, even though I really should have after that awful performance at Hosu. Even though it was only on for a short while, it had to be live on television. Her words were a panic. Only the most seasoned speedster could have followed. I was so worried. Oh my god, what happened to your arm? Does it hurt? Do you need painkillers? Will it grow back? Indeed, All Might was present, keeping a safe distance from the area of danger and not planning to move forward until I helped Mom relax. Just in. All Might is afraid of housewives. This was going to take some time. He puts his successor in the firing line. Granted, part of that was spent explaining what transpired to All Might for several hours. I knew that there was another threat out there, and a big one at that, so I think that worried him a little. However, he didn't become the most popular hero by acting cowardly. At the conclusion of my justification, he grinned broadly and promised to lend his support as much as possible. When we eventually left the police station, it was already dawning, and all I wanted to do was go to bed and hope that my arm would come back. Blink, blink. Oh, for fuck's sake, I thought to myself as the media vultures cried out of an interview, and dozens, maybe hundreds, of camera flashes went straight into my eyes. With the hardest look I could muster, I raised my hand and looked down at the reporters, not wanting to deal with this crap right now. Which, given that they all stopped talking right away, must have been pretty awful. Not that I had any complaints. I made myself very clear, pointing at my stump and daring anyone to stop me as I walked by with All Might and Mom following awkwardly behind me. I've spent all day today, training, fighting, killing monsters, and bringing in a hero killer. I've lost an arm, a lot of blood, and I'm tired. So if you don't mind, I'm going to drive home with my mother and sleep this off. The stillness persisted until our mother turned on the engine and we got inside the minivan, All Might just about fitting inside. Oh, I guess I was a little irritated at the moment. Young Midoriya, have I ever told you that you're pretty scary when you're angry? Since it appears to have worked, I can't really complain. Hold on, did I just get into a car with Mom and All Might? We declared that we were leaving for home, in front of several hundred reporters. Izuku's apartment the following day, 9 a.m. Mirko interrupted me after the whole stain incident, saying there wasn't much more for me to learn from her. She did, however, leave me her contact details, implying that we will become friends when I eventually obtain my provisional license. I could also work on a few things with the extra time. I need so many materials, like iron, gold, silver, and mercury, and I need them all in big quantities, I said the following day after my arm had grown back, albeit raw. And now I was experimenting with creating mystic codes. After all, one must stay ahead of the arms race. I was currently considering creating a necklace that would prevent any magical mental interferences. Better expressed than done. Runecraft was very helpful, and now that I had power in most of my circuits, it wasn't a big deal. The real issue was with the materials I mentioned earlier and my newfound interest in magic. What's the purpose of tampering with reality when it was already packed with little shortcuts? Why does alchemy need to be so vague? At this point, I think I should just use the physics-powered version of reality and stick with it. For instance, More than 99% of matter is made up of nothing but space. Potential non-tangibility? More investigation is required. In addition, I utilized every point I earned from leveling up at last. 50 in all. It seems like these were meant to be used early on for relatively large power boosts. Don't get me wrong, using them now was helpful, however, it was really quite disappointing. Naturally, they all went into WIS. While I can easily improve all of my physical stats, INT and WIS are more difficult. WIS was much trickier, but I could study more subjects and use alchemy to sharpen my mind and increase my INT. It also aided in my decision that it was my lowest stat by more than 100 points. I ought to go see the girls today. Apparently the girls knew what was going on from the party menu and were particularly concerned when I suddenly lost a good chunk of HP that didn't come back. Maybe some more eyes on this problem will help. It would be a good idea to visit in order to put some of those worries to rest. What time would be ideal, I wonder? Ping, Momo Yaoyorozu, Izuku Midoriya, U.S. My house, 10 minutes, or else. My survival instincts kicked in as I hurriedly shoved magical reagents into my inventory and quickly explained the situation to my mother. Immediately it is, lest I face the wrath of several angry girlfriends, I thought to myself. To my amazement, my mother gave me a sympathetic yet worried look before wishing me luck. It felt almost like she was watching me run to my death by the time I reached the door. Then I realized I probably had 3 or 4 enraged girlfriends to deal with. It was a happy existence. After 9 minutes. When I get there, Momo is waiting outside her mansion's gates, holding a fucking whip. I swallow hard and follow her instructions, hoping that acquiescing would mitigate my punishment. She glanced at me, then at her watch, then back at me. You're lucky you're punctual. Get inside, the others have prepared several pages of material for this. 3 voices came from behind Momo's door as we were making our way to her room. We said, time to face the music, and as soon as we opened the door, a Uraraka missile traveling at full speed glomped me. Yuyur, she stammered out as her eyes were hidden and her voice was low. I attempt to comfort her, completely misjudging the circumstances, saying, I'm okay Ochako-chan. You know that it takes more than a missing limb to keep me down. She used her quirk on me and then gave me the picture-perfect Russian suplex, slamming my head into Momo's mahogany floor. You absolute idiot, was her reaction to my comment, which escalated her rage from a 9.5 to a solid 10. -200. Ouch. You went out to fight the fucking hero killer, and didn't invite me. Not only that but you nearly died. Don't even bother lying and saying that you could handle it. I saw the healing debuff. Oh dear. Whoa, that was awful. Oh Ochako-chan, I'm so sore. No, you're not. Don't lie to me Izuku. I know for a fact that if this happened again you'd do the same thing. I know that I'm not strong enough to help you against these kinds of opponents and I know that you were just doing what you thought was right. Wait a minute. Abara-chan came along to make sure we didn't go too far, which is why we decided to go relatively easy on you compared to what I was going to do when I was angrier, she said, showing the 2 other girls in the room with a sappy smile on her face. As Pony shook her head, sensing where this was really headed, Abara waved, trying to convince herself that she had come for the right reasons. Panicking at the suggestive weapon, I asked, was that why Momo-chan had the whip? What whip? Ochako asked, losing a little of her steam as she gave Momo a bewildered look. The Ravenette blushed at the unexpected attention and then mumbled that she was learning from Midnight, who was only too glad to have a little girl to tutor in the fundamentals. Asobi, analysis. You're dead, son, I assumed that. Momo asked the most obvious question to begin the interrogation. Let's go through your thought process first, Deku-kun. Why did you think going after a serial killer with a confirmed body count of over a dozen heroes by yourself was a good idea? As for me, I suppose I could have if I hadn't had to defend 2 more people. Well, I guessed that Iida-kun would go out looking for revenge after what happened to his brother and I deduced that Hosu would be Stain's next city. I put 2 and 2 together and planned to keep him out of trouble. Also, I was pretty sure I could take him. And that was a big one, if Stain lacked a magical weapon. With a collective sigh, the girls went to work, and Pony continued where Momo had left off. I quickly agreed. They already accepted that, given the current circumstances, I had to go in alone or risk the deaths of Iida and Native. If you were anyone else, I'd think you were being arrogant. The fact may be that you were stronger than Stain, but you should know that in a battle anything can happen. Please don't go in alone like that unless you have no other choice. Why didn't you tell us though? Or at least All Might sends he knew, didn't he? I'm sending that lying mountain of muscle into orbit the next time I see him. Anger shrugged. Apologies, All Might. I appreciate you representing the team. I for one think you did the right thing and am merely here to make sure that the other girls don't let their emotions rule over them. Abara repeated. Though much more at ease about everything that transpired, she was still worried. Despite everything that had happened recently, her faith remained strong. With that, Momo sounded far too disappointed. Ah, does this mean no whip? Has her internship with Midnight raised any red flags for me to be concerned about? On the other hand, I couldn't help but picture Momo dressed entirely in leather, a la Midnight's original outfit. With that kind of drive, perhaps I ought to be embracing the S&M concept rather than constantly rejecting it. Naturally, I'd prefer not to make my already disastrous public life any worse in private. But why were they staring at me that way? They nod in agreement. I was mumbling again, wasn't I? Ochako was beaming broadly. Hail my former habits. Ochako, playing suggestively with Abara's hair, exclaimed, Don't worry Deku-kun. There's no kink shaming here. Plus we already have everything we need for bondage play. A few seconds later, the severely blushing religious girl squeaked as she was smacked over the head with said hair. Down girl, we'll have time for exploration after Izuku-kun explains how he let himself lose an arm against someone weaker than him. That was still an odd situation. Their genuine fear and confusion were the source of all their worries. This was the self-image I had built up since I joined UA. I was essentially an unstoppable force that could sustain injuries but would never completely collapse. And yet, there I was, in front of all the girls, down to my last breath and nearly lifeless in cold, hard numbers. They must have found it terrifying. It's a little strange, you know, that me saying something so ridiculous to the girls actually made them take it seriously. Ah, right. So basically someone other than myself knows how to create mystic codes. Fair warning, the knowledge of this alone can be very dangerous, so I'd rather not get too into it until I've developed my anti-mind reading precautions. It was fortunate that Pony was the only one who understood the true meaning of what I had said because of the previously mentioned mind reading. Momo expressed the girls' general acceptance, saying, Mind reading villains in an arms race. Got it, not gonna go into that for obvious reasons. And I don't think I need to say that you have my support with any materials you may need. Thank goodness. If I didn't have to, I didn't exactly want to spend several million yen on bulk gold, silver, or mercury. If it's mental protection that you need, have you thought of seeking a higher power? Or does your patron bar you from seeking help from other gods? Abara asked. Actually, that was a really good question. It took you a while to ask me that. I don't mind at all, and if you're willing to give the gods what's due, some of them will be more than happy to assist. Be cautious as these payments differ for every god. It would be best if you caught up on your mythology before inadvertently alienating anyone. I'm only allowed to say that. We all fell silent when my patron gave the order to accept assistance from real deities. It makes sense that Abara was anxious about the prospect, and she had good reason. The gods of antiquity were infamous for their disregard and self-centeredness towards humans, despite the fact that there were some exceptions. I suggest caution. Benevolent or not, you're still making a trade with beings far beyond our power. You shouldn't rush into any deals, whether with the devil or otherwise. That was also equitable. In any case, what precisely did I have to offer the gods, apart from the customary worship and simple offerings that were customary in the past? I'll think about it, but Abara-chan is right. Let's not experiment with powers beyond our comprehension just yet. Hell, I'm just lucky that the one in control of my power is just a troll instead of being actively malevolent. Darn straight, kid, I'm not in charge. I only offer advice when it's required. You shouldn't count on me to save you from your foolish actions. Noted. Pony instantly eased the tension by saying, I think that settles pretty much everything that we can talk about for now, so cuddle the pain away. That was a concept I could support. The following day, UA third-person perspective. I was called over the intercom and thought to myself, I wonder what Vlad-sensei wants me to do after the whole Hosu fiasco. I made my way to my sister class's homeroom. I had assumed that I would just carry on with my internships with Midnight Sensei and All Might, but it seems like they were also quite busy handling the fallout from the incident in their roles as heroes and UA instructors. Even Recovery Girl had more work than usual to do while assisting at the Hosu hospitals. Oh my goodness, what a mess Stain made. Even after he was captured, the Nomu's fear tactics were what really scared the public, despite their annoying nature and considerable property damage. Despite my distraction, Gamer's mind managed to help me detect the slight change in air pressure that suggested an impending explosion. Unfortunately, he did not respond quickly enough to offer more than a token resistance. Whack. -200. I heard Kachan's voice echoing through the hallway. I got the bastard. Glue giant, do your thing. Skullface, give him that liquid cement to work with. Damage extras focus fire on Deku, defensive extras prepare for a counterattack. Buggy wannabe, keep your eyes on him from above, copycat, don't you dare think that me giving you my quirk means jack. We just need all the firepower we can get right now. I quickly reoriented myself, my mind racing for a way out. I require time. I can assume that property damage is acceptable given that Kachan just destroyed a wall in order to launch a surprise attack. Additionally, given that the ground is becoming liquid, there is an obvious solution. Detroit Smash. A 100% smash into the ground through the liquid stone everywhere, obstructing everyone's vision and bringing down anyone unprepared for the high-density liquid's fast-moving impact. Kachan was giving orders to everyone, saying, "Go for the brain and the body shall fall." Even though they had backup plans in place, eliminating their leader was crucial. It was a bonus that their leader was also one of their most skilled fighters. Colt Delaware Smash. Head, torso, left arm, right leg, and right arm. Every shot, be it from the whiplash, the shock, or the lack of oxygen from the variations in air pressure, knocked him out cold, threw him off balance, or simply pushed him back. Did I cross the line? As Kachan's lifeless body crashed through two walls and beneath some debris, I pondered. Then, I recalled that he had been a real tough guy in junior high and that his guilt had eventually died. Monoma opened his mouth to say, "He's not the only one with explosive powers, you overpowered harem pro GRK. But I grabbed his face, slammed him to the ground, and jabbed him in the stomach. I was only slightly shocked to see a thin piece of steel blocking my path before shrugging and delivering another punch, armed with 25% of OFA this time. Obviously, he didn't stand back up. I lectured the lightly moaning body beneath me. Having a lot of quirks is all well and good, Monoma-san, but if you're a novice at using every one of them, then you won't make it very far. Then I returned my focus to the other 18 students who were emerging from their shock-induced paralysis. You know, surprise attacks only work if you take down your target in one move. What are you going to do now that your leaders have? Tink tink asterisk. My skin was unharmed, but my shirt ripped open as I felt a slight poke at my back. I have a feeling this is all about, so I guess I should do my part. You've gotten better at stealth, Hagakuri-san, but again, it doesn't really matter if you can't hurt me. Sorry about this, but I don't like drawn-out fights. Folding my arms, I allow the unseen hero in training enough time to gain some distance before following the lead of my eccentricity. Double Lariat Smash. A special move on steroids performed by a certain Russian wrestler was performed, and the hurricane force winds it produced in such a small area instantly scattered the remaining students. While the more resilient students were simply blown back further, eliminating them from the fight altogether, half of the other students were knocked out on impact. You can come out now, Vlad-sensei, Aizawa-sensei. I yell, and as I do, my homeroom teacher appears from a concealed compartment in the ceiling, and Vlad exits a nearby room through a regular door. I guess the Blood Hero's notorious favoritism with his own class was still going strong. Damn, I thought they'd at least get in a few good hits. But I guess that's asking too much from Class 1A's Golden Boy now, is it? Aizawa shook his head. The outcome was predictable but still disappointing to him. I expected as much. I told you what happened with Stain was a fluke, Vlad-san. Though I suppose this exercise served as a good lesson for everyone involved, regardless of the outcome. You were attempting to assess my susceptibility to unexpected assaults and quick thinking. The Stain incident wasn't my finest moment, but this was merely a blind move because none of my classmates could have defeated me fast enough for a surprise attack to be significant. Well, maybe Momo-chan, but she can counter everyone with sufficient preparation. Correct, though it seems that those reports we were given were highly exaggerated. The police were being oddly hush-hush about the incident and didn't mention how exactly you lost that arm, so we just assumed. I know for a fact that the police are quiet. However, Vlad-sensei, you don't have to sound quite so disappointed. This was such an illogical way to go about it. I'm going to ask you directly, Midoriya, do you know what caused you to nearly lose that fight with Stain, and are you preparing countermeasures? If not, then so help me, I'll find someone who can beat some caution into you. Aizawa was being strangely kind about it all. I should at least try to allay his fears, in his own weird way. I tried to sort through my ideas, figuring out the best way to explain without giving away too much. I can safely say that what happened with Stain was a one-off. I got complacent and never thought that anyone could. Okay, listen, this is heavily classified for a good reason, so I can't say much, but Stain had a special weapon that caused my injury. Before he used that, he couldn't even cut me. Now I know such weapons exist and I even know how to replicate them myself. The only remaining issue is finding the bastard who created it and let Stain get his hands on it. I was still quite sore from being duped by the magic of runes. Put it down to professional pride. Wait, I get paid. I would like to know if this could become a problem in the near future. Would such a weapon be particularly easy to replicate? Aizawa asked, taking the new information calmly and diving right into gathering intelligence. Not everyone has access to a Momo, so even if I tried to create something on that level, it would take me days or even weeks to build it myself. Even with all the resources at my disposal. For someone without super speed, limitless resources, or advanced knowledge, that shouldn't happen. Aizawa nodded and put that information away for later. Maybe a couple months? Though it can be lower if there was more than one person working on it. In addition, some of the materials used are extremely rare and can't simply be bought. Vlad seemed to say a little too much, as Aizawa chastised him for talking too much before hurrying him out of the hallway, leaving me to deal with the 10 or so unconscious students with only another 10 injured students to assist. Sigh, it's better than nothing, I suppose. Don't slack off, problem child. I hate to admit it, but we'll be relying on you in this case. Oh, and don't forget that finals are next month. We have something special planned for the practical exam, so you should prepare. No hard feelings? I asked, getting nothing but icy glares in return. Perhaps I should have held back a little. Crash, rumble. The nearby ceiling eventually collapsed, adding to the already existing pile of debris. But wait, wasn't that the same debris where Kachan was buried? Whoops. Start, before finals on Sunday, Midoriya residence. Nodding to myself, I examined the freshly generated mystic code to double-check my work. Let's see, Urus, definitely that one. Maybe Rado to act as a natural buff to the mine's defenses. Asaz, that should give this a bonus against unknown attacks. Can't go wrong with Iwaz. Running out of room. Then the last runes should be manas and so willow. Silver Ring of Mental Protection, R. Izuku Midoriya created this mysterious code. Its enigmatic power is to strengthen the wearer's mind, providing 50% resistance against Magecraft rank C and higher and total nullification of Magecraft rank lower. If he could accomplish this with a simple silver ring, imagine what he could accomplish with a gold one. Maybe I overdid it a bit. Or perhaps a larger item, like a necklace. Would more than one accessory cause the effects to stack? For something like this, with a resistance rate and a complete nullification feature, what would that even mean? Mom called out from outside my room, Izuku honey, are you coming down for dinner or should I put it in the microwave? Yes. Magic and food could wait until later. I yelled, coming. As I walked to the kitchen, without my mother, how would I ever manage? Always watching out for me. Perhaps. Yeah, she deserves something nice, I murmur as I search through my stuff for the ideal present to offer. Well, that one sounds just right. Throughout the past month or so, I have been consistent with my daily gacha rolls through trial and error in regular classes. Some of which gave me my first legendary item and some really awesome stuff. The complete list of rolls was as follows. Pencil case, cheap deodorant, bike helmet, game station 2XL, MP3 player, Endeavor edition, rubber duck, red, black, and blue candle set, 10,000 yen x15, various gemstone dust x5, leather jacket, and MMA gloves are examples of universal items. Some fairly standard stuff. Even with just the guaranteed universal items, this gacha system is quickly generating a sizable profit for me. Common. Colt M1911 handgun, 2050 by .45 ACP rounds, flawless opal, 410 grams gold plates. Unless my mysterious benefactor can handle the legalities for me, I probably need to register that now. No such luck, kid, had to try. Uncommon. First edition Charizard, highest rank. The Amazing Spider-Man #1, Meditation Skillbook, Advice Token X5, Gacha Reroll Token X5, Random Stat Potion X7, Repair Tool. Subnautica, at least a good number of valuable duplicates, in addition to all those collector's items that fetch astronomical prices. Rare items include Divine Moshi 500 grams, Alchemy Skillbook, FMA, Moonrock, 1 kilogram, The Art of War, Original, De Revolution I Bus Orbium Coelestium, Original, Hammond Skillbook, Soldier Pills, Naruto, X5, and Divine Enochian Skillbook. Holy shit. Are those skillbooks really as valuable as I believe they are? And that Moshi, Ochako is going to have a heart attack. The manuscripts alone are worth tens of millions of yen each. Epic. Codex Lester, Hades Cap of Invisibility, NP, Excalibur, Richard, Gutenberg Bible Volume 1, Mystic Eye Killer Glasses, Reinforcement Skillbook, Projection Skillbook, Artificial Mystic Eyes of Binding. Good thing those glasses came with them. I'm a billionaire, well shit. Those magic skill books are also nothing to laugh at, though the mystic eyes might be a bit much. Legendary. Dragon Ball, Shenlong, 000, with 5 stars. A Dragon Ball, fuck it. I got a goddamn Dragon Ball because of my quirk, even though it was just one, nevertheless. I will not remove this from my inventory until I have obtained all 7. I restarted my brain and decided, no exceptions. Where was I going with this again? Yes, exactly, a present for Mom. I'll make her something specially made, you know. I quickly removed a handful of the pure gold plates from my inventory and shaped them into the ideal size bracelet using my increased strength and some heat from the friction of my work. After that, I used my fingernail to manually carve the runes Ansus, Wonjo, Aljas, and Ingwas into the material. This effectively created a mystic code for vitality and growth that should, in theory, significantly improve Mom's health over time. I let it burn out in my palm for a moment to calm it down and then, grinning at my work, I finally left my room. Now wouldn't it be unfortunate to burn Mom's wrist with her own gift? As I step outside into the kitchen, my mother is there with a steaming plate full of delectable dishes, including my all-time favorite, katsudon. Smiling at the gesture and blushing slightly at the growl my stomach gave, I leaned in to hug my mother and carefully placed the bracelet on her arm. There you are, Izuku. I made your favorite food. I thought you could use a reward for all of the hard work you've been doing for the past month. Izuku honey, what is this? Is this real gold? Where did you get it? It's so beautiful. I winked, bracing myself for the onslaught of tears that was inevitable, only to be taken aback by an unexpected question. I made it myself, just for you. That's just a small token of my appreciation for everything you've done for me, Mom. It's the first of many that I plan to give you, though I'll leave those for a later date. Where did you get this, Izuku? You said you made it yourself, but where did you get the gold? And where did you learn how to make something of this quality in the first place? Mom asked, clearly concerned. It was, I suppose, about time I told her the real reason behind my eccentricity, and fortunately I now have the means to do so without drawing attention to myself from would-be mind readers. I said to my mother, Mom, I'll explain everything, but first, what do you know about RPGs? She said that I shouldn't play around with military-grade explosives, no matter how tough I was, and that it would take some time to go through everything. After hours, I spent explaining gamer lingo. It was to be expected, really. And you're absolutely sure that you aren't on drugs right now, honey? Naturally, I said. No, and given the benefits of gamer's mind, I was pretty confident that any hallucinogenic drugs used on me would have had minimal, if any, effects. That was my initial assumption, along with the possibility that this was some sort of elaborate Quirk prank. Not that I could blame her for thinking that. She stammered over her words, revealing to me where I got my previous stutter from. Right, of course, just. Please be careful, Izuku. I know that these powers have made you incredible for the lack of a better word, but as a mother I can't help but worry about you. Please, I know I can't stop you from being a hero, but just promise me that you'll be careful above all else. It was unbearable for me to witness my mother in such a state of worry, especially since I had promised something similar only a few weeks before. We stood there for what felt like hours before deciding to spend the day together. Mom, I swear on my life and everything I hold dear that I'll take every precaution possible to stay alive. I'll never stop protecting the innocent, but even I know that if I go down, the chances are high that those I was protecting will soon follow. And I think it goes without saying that I'll never let that happen, my mother said, cutting me off with a firm hug. Something we both knew we needed, but didn't realize how much. Things like this helped me understand why heroes gave their lives in battle. What I had battled for and would continue to battle to defend. I would have enjoyed this while it lasted tonight, but knowing UA, I would be in for something equally excruciating, educational, and expensive tomorrow. Izuku Pav. Final exams the following day. There in front of me was an array of some of the most well-known and formidable heroes in all of Japan, all of them grinning terrifyingly at me. Why? Just why? Also how? And when? Was one of the many implied questions from the previous set, most of which the brilliant UA principal could have guessed and intended to respond to. As for how, the mammalian principal responded, only to have a certain battle bunny cut him off. You're too strong for the regular test, or the newer test that we've come up with. So instead we've enlisted the help of some of the country's top heroes to give you a proper challenge proportional to your potential Midoriya-kun. The current number 7 hero Mirko responded, effectively annoying her temporary male co-workers, saying, I don't know about Lizard-chan, the Chunibyo, or the Fire Crotch, but I just want a rematch. Izuku. The current 12th ranked hero, Ryukyu, is the lowest ranked of them all. Also, you got me interested in working with other heroes every once in a while. Ryukyu is pretty badass, if you were wondering. She said politely, a little embarrassed by Mirko's aggressiveness. It's a pleasure to meet you, Midoriya-san. I suppose I should thank you for getting this antisocial rabbit to open up to partnerships. She's been a great mentor for me. I can't wait to test your combat abilities myself. Should I be relieved or concerned that someone named Edgeshot thought highly of my naming scheme? Izanami couldn't stop talking about you during the off time of our internship. So when UA asked around for volunteers, I couldn't help but be interested. I hope that your fighting ability is as good as your naming scheme. Never-ending questions. Translation. Despite Endeavor's best efforts, he was unable to defeat All Might. You defeated Showdown, and then you suddenly became All Might's supposed successor of all things. It would be irresponsible of me as the number 2 hero to turn away from such an opportunity. It's time to pursue his trainee. Does that explain it well enough for you, Midoriya-kun? Great. The rules for your test shall be the same as for the rest of your classmates, but with the obvious exception of having more opponents and the lack of restraints on them. Any further questions? I began to speak. Other than why All Might isn't here, you know that we can't reserve too many heroes to just you. Toshinori shall be testing Yaoyorozu-san and Todoroki-kun instead. I was obviously defeated and a little disappointed that I was unable to confront my mentor once more when I said, I have no further questions. However, if I was being completely honest, I think that would have been the end of me. Even with a few weights, I wasn't quite up to his level. But these heroes? Perhaps, just possibly. It took all of my willpower not to correct Endeavor when he said, good, a hero shouldn't dally with pointless questions when a crisis is happening. Villains don't talk your ear off in real life. Almost all of the main antagonists I had encountered, including Kurogiri, Shigaraki, and Stain, were quite talkative. Admittedly, the talks lacked much intellectual stimulation. It wasn't very often that you fought someone as versatile as the gamer. You will have 5 minutes to prepare yourself, Midoriya-kun. Please use any and all tools in your arsenal. This is as much a test for these great heroes as it is for you. Any fighter could benefit from this kind of exercise. After 5 minutes of MacGyvering, third-person combat perspective, the fake destroyed city echoed with eerie laughter as the green hero appeared out of nowhere, seemingly totally comfortable with the group of formidable and highly skilled villains advancing toward him. They had no idea that 5 minutes would be more than enough to make him feel at least somewhat comfortable. Despite being almost a kilometer away from the greenette, the group's ninja whispered, for some reason, he's just walking, menacingly. He knows something that we don't. Having spent some time with the student, the only hero among them asked, also, why is he wearing so much jewelry all of a sudden? The Battle Bunny groaned, knowing full well how much of a pain in the ass those little symbols could be when used correctly. Damn, he's got even more of those bullshit magic runes now. I have no idea what any of them do, but they're bound to be annoying. And with a training and study month ahead of them, she was sure her ex-partner, intern, had a lot of tricks up his sleeve now. With a jet burn already aimed at the green hero student's face, the elder Todoroki said, if we have no useful information, then we'll have to scout him out. If it looks like you have an opening, take it. Otherwise, stay out of my way while I test the waters. Naturally, this was met with a powerful Delaware smash from Izuku, but even so, the flame hero's attack was not entirely stopped because he had given it more than enough energy to fight an opponent on All Might's level if needed. Something that Todoroki the Elder had only ever done in his battles with the most powerful hero. Thus far. Endeavor grinned, thinking he had caught the cocky youngster off guard as his fist got closer. The moment the greenhead took the punch as if it were nothing, this smirk vanished faster than Izuku's father. Skin that appeared impervious to the flames while he worked. With a cocked fist back, Izuku said, strong. You didn't earn your rank for nothing, Endeavor, but you're nowhere near as strong as All Might. Speaking of which, you should be familiar with this next attack. As Endeavor struggled to free himself from his hold, Izuku gave it his all. Attempting to overcome Izuku's runic and inherent fire resistance by setting himself and Izuku on fire. Before launching a 50% Detroit smash at his opponent, Izuku apologized and said, sorry, but your quirk is rather simple to counter. Fire resistance is ridiculously simple to build into my gear, and let's be honest. Your powerful flames are pretty much all you have. I'm hoping Todoroki-kun is observing, as I know he would enjoy this. Whoa! With a blow to his chest, the older Todoroki was flung backwards and his body crashed into the building where the other heroes were waiting. As their wounded comrades soared past them and a few more concrete walls, they watched with wide eyes and gaping mouths. Izuku asked, his voice seeming to carry over the entire distance to the heroes, so Mirko-san, do you still want that rematch? with a sly smile on his face as he looked down at the now perspiring heroes. The greatest heroes in all of Japan realized at this very moment that they might have been playing far above their abilities. Said teammates winced a little against their better nature. Well, you haven't answered my question. Or would you rather give your teammates a chance to fight me? You didn't get to face a man who easily outmatched the second-ranked hero every day. Obviously, Endeavor misjudged him. I tried to scare them even more, thinking that since I was going to replace All Might, I might as well take a page out of his book. A walking fire hazard, a ninja, a rabbit, and a dragon. Quite the selection we have here. So, how was the scouting mission? Did that little demonstration with Endeavor give you an idea of how this will go down? Make villains fearful of you so much that they will never consider trying anything in your presence. Naturally, this would not be very effective against insane villains, villains with a certain level of power, or heroes who frequently faced insurmountable odds. These were the opponents I faced at the moment. Mirko recovered her composure first and responded, "The hell it did. Did you think that just because the fire crotch went in half-cocked and got injured for it that it would mean we'd give up or get scared? Heroes like that don't survive long." However, her words were meaningless because the other heroes remained where they were, realizing that they would quickly join him if they dove in as Endeavor had. They had to wait and see. For now, it was their opponent who took the lead. And I was more than happy to take advantage of it. It might have been a bad idea to start off strong, but failing to do so would kind of defeat the purpose of this exam. Full cowling. 50% reinforced. This was meant to be a trial of my mettle, as well as the capacity of the greatest heroes to take on an opponent worthy of All Might. It would have been meaningless if I hadn't given it everything I had. Scatter. The ninja commanded, leaping into the air and using his peculiarity to raise his altitude while his comrades trailed behind him in different directions. Unfortunately, against a man who could match All Might's speed, all of this was for naught. The team's resident dragon was the first to fall prey. My inner fanboy turned into my outer fanboy, thinking, this is going to look so cool, and who could blame me for anything? I was wearing magical bling and green lightning, and I was fighting a goddamn dragon. This fulfilled the dream of all nerds. It would go without saying, of course, that the dragon was also a smoking hot heroine. Hand cannon smash. I clenched my fists and rammed them both into Ryukyu's altered form. The dragon's torso gave way slightly before she withdrew farther into the sky, and I heard a crack of her scaly armor as well as perhaps a rib. Too bad that something as insignificant as physics no longer mattered at this stage of combat. I say, keeping up with her in the air with a series of kicks. You won't be escaping through the sky. Time to clip those wings. Then I took a basic metal part from my stock, formed it into a more aerodynamic shape, and added the sharp edge. I yell, grit your teeth, and launch the newly formed projectile at a speed faster than a bullet, effortlessly puncturing one of Ryukyu's wings and causing her to rapidly lose altitude. The ninja was able to ambush me and stab me in the neck with a straight, 1000-sheet pierce. If it had been anyone else, this would have been a crippling injury that, at best, would have killed them from the resulting blood loss or, at worst, rendered them unconscious due to a lack of blood supply to the brain. To me, it was only a slight sting that would go away quickly. It was not the same story for the part of my body Edgeshot used to stab me. Before Edgeshot could free himself from my neck, his left foot was twisted and fractured. The pain caused him to lose some control over his quirk, and his body collapsed. Since he was an experienced hero, which he obviously was, he quickly regained his sense of direction and used his quirk once more to enable him to float down to safety. He would be eliminated from the fight if he were any other opponent, but this was one of the top 10 heroes I was referring to. Later, he would likely launch a desperate attack, which I would enthusiastically welcome. For now though, I'll take care of the dragon first. The second-ranked hero unleashed his most powerful move, Not So Fast Brat, Prominence Burn. All I could feel was a wave of heat and a flash of light. There was that tiny bit of relief, at least, knowing that the pain would have been unbearable had the attack not instantly burned off all of his nerves. Minus 2000 status gained. Burned severely, blinded, smell blind, and taking 10 burn damage per second until recovering 80% of maximum HP. Hell no, heat resistance or not, I could really die from this. That is, of course, if I did nothing. However, I did launch a fully charged Detroit Smash directly into the center of the fire, starving it of oxygen and possibly sending Endeavor crashing into a nearby wall. My eyes melted, so it wasn't like I could see anymore, and it would take me a few minutes to recover from such serious wounds. Fortunately, I still had my hearing to help me navigate around even though my sense of feeling and sight had long since faded due to the burning flesh. It should be alright for the time being to stay in a random building and lay low, at least long enough to avoid fighting anyone until I healed. I made good use of my time while this was going on, starting to carve runes all over the room, which pretty much guaranteed that the other heroes wouldn't find me. However, just to be thorough, I put on my newly acquired Hades cap of invisibility as well, to be certain, just in case. I searched my skill list for anything that could aid me in this battle while I waited for my passive regen to handle the damage. Endeavor had shown me that my opponents had more than enough weaponry to defeat me if I continued to fight carelessly. This is way more fun than I thought it would be. I wouldn't describe myself as a battle enthusiast, but I also admit that I was getting a little tired of the challenges I hadn't faced recently. I could only be crushed by All Might so many times before it became monotonous, and Stain was an anomaly. But several more powerful but weaker heroes to contend with? I needed this. Alright, Izuku, stop and think. The largest threat among them is Endeavor, but he is a 1 or 2 shot wonder who will eventually overheat. Fortunately, Edge Shot has been neutralized for the time being, so they have lost their most mobile member. I got Ryukyu pretty good in the ribs back there, so she should be unable to fly and out for at least a minute or two. Thus, Mirko is left. I chuckle a little and smirk my most evil smile. It's time to get back at her for that kick to the face she gave him during the Stain incident. The previous occasions were all just innocent, clean fun, but continuing after missing such a significant fight when I was missing an arm. That called for payback. As I was waiting out the final few seconds to let my health reach 90% before coming out from under my cover, I heard voices from somewhere nearby. Technically, I could now just walk out and get out, but what fun would that be? Careful not to let myself be seen, I dash onto the rooftops and make my way towards the voices. The heroes were coordinating incredibly well with one another. While Mirko played Scout, Endeavor, who was still cooling down, helped tend to Edge Shot and Ryukyu's injuries. They didn't go far apart, obviously. Not that it was important. I yelled, Hades smash, as I raced up behind Mirko and joined her in an unidentified area of the city, severing her support network. Of course, to keep us completely hidden from prying eyes, I sent a mana burst into her communication device. To be fair, Mirko was unaware of the existence of the cap of invisibility. Really? Hades smash? Her name didn't really matter because she was too preoccupied trying to use every last bit of her agility to avoid my punches. Perhaps 700, to be exact. Making her much faster than I could. As long as I refrained from using my reinforcement powers. I bullshit just to see how Mirko would react, adding a simple reinforcement spell to instantly nearly double my stats. Release restraints level 1. All Mirko could say was, level wa. Just before her opponent, a former intern, slammed her into the ground. If it weren't for me stopping her fall with a swift Delaware smash air cushion, she would have lost the fight after taking a direct hit to the stomach that knocked out her wind and stomach acid. Was that disappointment? Wah? Why did you break my fall? I thought you said you wouldn't hold back, you green bastard. From the fact that I didn't throw her into the concrete, I believed that my role was to be the masochistic one. She was pulling a Kachan. I see now. Don't you dare look down on me, it makes sense. She wouldn't be happy with her loss until I gave in a little. I hope she could handle it. I'd rather not kill you on accident, Mirko-san. But if you don't want me to hold back at all, I suppose I should at least give you a taste of my strongest attack. An attack that I just invented. You could only get so creative with your hard-hitting punches before it became monotonous. I then push OFA to its limit, 60% through my entire body and 100% to my right arm for maximum effectiveness, pumping as much prana through my body as I can. At last, I turn on Power Attack, one of my first acquired skills, purely for the slight boost in power it would provide. Right now, the majority of normal people would be justified in fleeing as soon as they could if they witnessed someone casually ripping their clothes and practically glowing. But Mirko was my opponent, so naturally, she took the complete opposite action. Sigh, I should fire it off now before she gets into lethal range. I exhaled sharply, punched down, instantly thought of another name, and screamed it out. Was it arrogant to call the assault Gustav Smash? After the biggest gun ever created? Maybe. Did that lessen the impact's merit as a name? No way. This attack was impressive even when compared to something All Might could pull off. Sheer power, dozens of times stronger than anything I could consistently pull off, but at the expense of severe injury and a lack of control. Honestly, it was a bit excessive. No, for a fighter of Mirko's caliber, it was excessively excessive, but whatever, she made the request. Mirko collapsed as soon as the air pressure reached her, knocking herself out cold after witnessing the equivalent of an ICBM explode only a few meters away. If the attack had not been downward and indirect, forcing the nearby concrete to absorb the majority of the energy before it reached her. She probably would have straight up lost a limb. I thought to myself as I caught her before she split her skull open and hit a building or something. There, now she can't complain about me holding back. I took hold of her by the good arm and proceeded to conceal the body in a nearby building before searching for the other heroes. Wait, am I the villain? I wince at the damage I caused as I look down at the fallen Mirko. Although it is true that she requested it, this may be excessive. I scoop her up in a carry-a-la bride and make my way out. A swift peck on the shoulder tends to the bunny hero's cuts and scrapes instantly. But before that, unfortunately, this used up all of her remaining energy, so she wasn't going to be able to climb back up anytime soon. When they arrived, Mirko was immediately being carried elsewhere on a stretcher by two tiny robots. I could now simply pass the exam there and then by walking through the gate. Where was the fun in that, though? I won't even pretend that I wasn't having fun. Screw it, I'm already playing the part of the battle maniac villain. Might as well get into character. Not that I had much left to fight for. Edgeshot was suffering from a broken leg. I believe I broke or injured Ryukyu's ribs. Endeavor was exhausted, suffering from moderate damage, and was likely overheating by now, and Mirko was out of the fight. Let's see if that hero prevails by some miracle. Trope happens in real life. You never know, perhaps they will draw on their probably extensive experience base. After precisely 1 minute with his broken leg clearly visible, Edgeshot cried out, "I surrender," from a seemingly random pile of debris. Do I look like an idiot? Was blatantly obvious to be a trap, so I didn't even allow him to answer. The two hiding heroes dispersed like a couple of roaches when I simply launched a Detroit smash at the oddly arranged pile of rubble to my right. Okay, maybe I'm going too deep on this whole villain routine, I thought to myself. Yes, no, plan B. Prominence BUCK. That was enough the last time, and I'd prefer to kill it early rather than run the risk of being set ablaze by Endeavor's flames once more. Thus, the flaming hero was dispatched quickly by an instant transmission. In his opponent's eyes. Into a gut check. If my analysis skill is correct, it nearly took his breath away, but it did stun him for the time being. But the next chop to the back of Endeavor's neck did put out the lights, literally and figuratively, as the hero's flames went out right away. Edgeshot said, "Okay, can I actually surrender though?" A hero also knows when he's in too deep and should try to live and fight another day. It was quite effective to shut down his companion. He was at a loss on how to stop this. With a final glare at me, Ryukyu exclaimed, "Well, I sure don't." I made no attempt to sidestep the approaching draconic missile. Rather, I simply raised my arm and heard her snout snap as it made contact with my hand, causing the remainder of her to stop abruptly. She was smashed into the ground with a single, fast flick of the wrist. How about now? I'll interpret her agonized sigh as a yes. She wasn't going to go away, so I guess I'll have to lead the three of them to the door at this point. Fantastic. I'm grateful for Asobi's extraordinary strength. Sure, I suppose. I suppose you could also thank All Might for that, but you're welcome anyhow. I occasionally forgot that I was a warlock. I didn't expect a response, but okay. Even though I essentially have no powers. I was both relieved and terrified by the idea that, apparently, I had friends in high places. However, that also raised the prospect of having adversaries in powerful positions. Or, for that matter, in low places. No, I'm not giving it any thought. There's absolutely no chance of a demon invasion occurring here. I was finding it difficult to plan around the possibility of human mages traveling the globe, so I said, fuck that. If the gods of this world, or demons, were like the gods of the Nasuverse, I wanted to avoid contact with them as much as possible because magic wielded by humans was already dangerous enough. Not to mention the looming threat of All for One. Even as I am now, I'm not sure I could beat someone like that. I'm barely keeping pace with All Might. I murmured, intent on thinking. It was impressive to be able to keep up with the world's most popular hero, but it didn't mean I would prevail over the man who injured All Might. So much to get ready for. I would have to make do with passing my first semester finals for the time being, though. Thankfully, Principal Nezu was waiting for me at the edge of the fake city. Though I wasn't looking forward to finding out why he was giving me his patented manic stare. Things went poorly for those who catch Nezu's interests. Excellent work, Midoriya-kun. Amazingly excellent work. The countermeasures I could build out of this fight's data alone would make it forgive me. I've gone far off topic. I believe it goes without saying, but you've passed. However, there is more to it than just that. Come along. Aizawa-kun has prepared quite the speech for you. I didn't like the sound of that. Was it the collateral damage? It was the collateral damage, wasn't it? Minutes later, And on top of the several billion yens worth of collateral damage, you treated your opponents far too flippantly. What do you think would have happened if there were civilians close by? That's not even mentioning the villainous laughter that I could see you holding back the whole time. Aizawa has been scolding me for the past 5 minutes. I know I kinda deserve this for losing myself in that exam though, so I take it and reflect on my mistakes. It would seem I still had a ways to go. I knew that already, but to think I could devolve into such a childish mindset over something as simple as a legitimate challenge. And so much for that. Sure, I got injured, but it was short-lived and my opponents fell in short order. As far as challenges went, this was a mild one at best. Aizawa sighed deeply. Like student like teacher, it's so similar to how All Might acts at times it's almost scary. Though nowadays, not many can get this kind of response out of that man. At least I can be secure in the fact that I'm not alone. Though knowing that All Might can get battle crazy against a worthy opponent explains so much about our spars. While you passed, were docking points for all of the previously mentioned reasons. Your position as All Might's successor will place these higher standards upon you. I hope you understand. Fair enough, I honestly should have expected that and would keep it in mind for the future. Understood. By the way, how are the others doing? I was especially worried about Todoroki and Momo. Ooh, Jumbotron. Let's see. Kirishima-kun and Sato-san lost against Cementos, expected. Ashido-san and Kaminari-san lost against the principal, also expected. Oh wow, I never thought that part of Su-chan's quirk would come in handy. Huh. Mineta-san actually passed. Who would have thought? Poor Zero though. The commentary continued in this fashion as each individual fight ended at different times, though from the looks of All Might's match, that was the one to keep an eye on. Momo and Todoroki were doing surprisingly well, focusing on distractions and delaying tactics, but this was All Might they were up against. Huh, I didn't know Present Mike was scared of bugs. I take a notebook out of my, wait, where did I pull that out from? It wasn't my inventory and I didn't have it anywhere on my costume. You know what, I'm not going to question it. I decided while taking notes like in my quirkless days. Ignorance was bliss, right? Tail and engine, two fairly simple quirks combined to make something special. Too bad it isn't very photogenic though, snap. I was going to save that picture for later. Who knows when it could come in handy. Wow. My eyes snapped up to Ochako's match with Aoyama against 13. Did she just bluff 13's black hole ability? That would be a tough quirk to avoid even for me. No, that wasn't completely accurate. Ochako has the advantage of 13 holding back against her, I suppose. She'd probably keep it going up against me until I lost an arm, knowing how quickly I regenerate. Still, pulling off that kind of gymnastic maneuver in midair while making use of the black hole's suction was nothing short of impressive. Shoji and Hagakure won because of unfortunate circumstances on Snipe's part. Oh well, whatever it takes to win, right? As expected, the battle that was dragging on the most was All Might's. That one was either going to end very quickly, or get stalled to the last second by Momo and Todoroki. There was no in-between with that matchup. Ice walls, sparking chemicals that blinded the symbol of peace, each piece of ice only further reflecting the light. Random bouts of fire to further blind and deal minor damage to All Might. Disorientation, distraction, creativity. Those were the ingredients that allowed the two hero students to survive for so long. Each minute that passed leading them further towards the exit. Slowly but surely. Up until All Might stopped holding back and began ripping through Todoroki's ice walls like paper, outright ignoring his flames, and using air pressure to send anything Momo created back at her before they could even do anything. Worse yet, some of them misfired and caught the two students instead of their intended target. This gave All Might an opening, a slight one, but that was all he needed to grab one of his students. And of the two, Momo's long hair made for an excellent target. Up you go. You did quite well, young Yaoyorozu, however, this is where you lose. Where did young Todoroki go? Did he make a break for it while I was distracted dealing with you? It was a valid strategy. Against any other opponent. All Might though? Slam. Yaoyorozu got tossed to the ground and was about to be officially captured by All Might. That was, if it weren't for the sudden cold that set off every alarm bell the veteran hero had. Todoroki had stealthily created a trail of frost from his position only a few meters away from All Might, making sure to keep it out of his line of sight as he did so. In the end, it was the high-pitched shriek of ice that got the large hero moving. Unfortunately for All Might, his weight slowed him down just enough to get caught by the quickly growing point-blank wall of ice that surrounded him. In no time at all, All Might was completely encased in ice, to the point where he couldn't even move a muscle. effectively locking him in place until his body heat could give him enough wiggle room to blow the ice off. And since the students had been slowly but surely leading their teacher to the exit, they had ample time to reach it before All Might finally broke out. Even though Momo needed some help moving quickly after getting thrown around by All Might. Wow, they actually won. I just can't believe that All Might fell for such a simple trick. He must have been distracted or lost in thought over what they were planning. Or more likely, he lost himself in the exam and wanted to flex a bit as he was known to do on the job. Maybe this would serve as a learning experience for All Might as well. Oh, who am I kidding? Nothing short of the end of the world will cut into that man's persona. He pretty much built his career and legacy around it after all. Still, he could learn to tone it down at least a little. Not that I was complaining, now I had something new to try out whenever we sparred again. Midoriya-kun, please stop smiling like that. Maniacal laughter and menacing grins are my shtick. That was an excellent villain act you pulled off though. Tell me, would you be interested in a job, alternative hero licensing exam in the near future? Nezu asked, likely contemplating how he could take part in the time-honored tradition of schools profiting off their students. Given the context of what you're asking, I can already guess what role I'd be playing. I'm not against the idea, but I'd like to hear more about it before I decide anything. The school already has my phone number, so feel free to call me whenever it's convenient and explain it then. Right now I really want to speak to my class about the exams. Whatever the specifics were, I was sure it would be fun. I'd keep it secret though, who knows, maybe his class was going to get the same treatment my exam proctors did in the near future. Of course, of course. Go ahead Midoriya-kun, I'm sure your classmates are waiting for you. There was something unsettling about listening to a mouse, dog-sized creature cackling in a half-animalistic half-human language. Which is why I decided to speed walk my way towards my classmates. I sensed a shiver coming along, that laugh would probably haunt me for a while. To nobody's surprise, it was Iida who addressed me first as I entered our classroom. Midoriya-kun. Wasn't this such a fantastic test for future heroes? Ojiro-kun and I were hard-pressed to outmaneuver Powerloader Sensei, but we managed to pull through. How did your test go? We didn't get to see who you were up against before we were taken to our respective opponents. Ah, yes, this again. Oh boy, here I go flexing again. All Might would be proud. At this point, should we even be surprised? Iida read and voiced Class 1A's collective thoughts after I told them about my final exam opponents and how I did against them. Sometimes I wonder why UA hasn't already accelerated your heroics lessons. By now you should easily be able to earn a provisional license at the very least. Again, accurate, but being a hero required more than just pure power or academic ability. While I had the first one in spades and my intelligence was rivaled only by Momo. Even then, I only rivaled her because of my relative lack of focus on book smarts. If I truly applied myself, I'd likely surpass her too. Still, I was missing one very important aspect of heroism that couldn't be bought with skill points. Gotcha perhaps, but not skill points. I still need to learn to work with other heroes. Plus I wouldn't want to leave you all behind like that. Nobody, no matter how powerful, can do everything by themselves. All Might couldn't, and I certainly can't. Even if I could theoretically get that strong with the gamer, I still wouldn't want to do everything by myself. How lonely of an existence would that be? All Might already made the mistake of going at it alone, and he was still suffering the consequences. I would make sure to learn from that mistake and never repeat it. Besides, they're thinking of giving me an alternative provisional license exam similar to what they did for this one. I don't know the details yet, but I think I have a good guess. If it was what I thought it was. Deku-kun. Why are you smiling like that? Why did you suddenly go from a Nezu smile to a midnight smile when I asked? Oh no, I let my inside feelings appear on my outside. That's not good. You can't just pretend that nothing happened by giving us an innocent smile anymore, Deku-kun. That stopped working months ago. Plan A was a bust. Plan B it is. Why don't we all go shopping as a class to celebrate the end of our first semester? Any food is on me. Good OL bribery, it never fails. Hours later, Kiyoshi Shopping Mall, Wookiees. Apparently, bribery was far less effective against the stupidly wealthy and the exceptionally pious. Okay, I'll admit I was having a bit too much fun thinking about the upcoming provisional exam. Look, can we just forget about that and enjoy the day? It's been a while since we've just relaxed together. The sports festival, the internships, and recently their finals. Their whole class could use a break like this. I guess you're right. It wasn't that much of a big deal anyway, I'm just still a little shaken from my own practical exam. Momo muttered, rubbing her chin when a bit of phantom pain struck her from the memory. I nodded in understanding, more than aware of just how painful fighting All Might could be. I just came along to glare at you because I sensed you thinking something sinful. Though honestly, I'm still in a bit of shock over finding out that your life has basically become a video game. And everything to do with Asobi, it's all a bit overwhelming. Another perspective that I could easily understand. If I was being honest with myself, I'd probably be going mad by now if it weren't for Gamer's Mind. Even with it on, it could be argued that I've gone just a tiny bit insane because of the game. Just a tad. Oh, who am I kidding? Healing ability or not sacrificing limbs for minor combat advantages isn't sane by any metric. At least you're aware of it. My entire class said at once. I really need to stop saying things out loud at random. Yes, you should. The choir spoke once again. I definitely wasn't pouting at them. Badass heroes don't pout. Okay. Maybe just a little. Still, this was a nice change of pace. My classmates were all enjoying themselves. My girlfriends, that would never get old, in particular, were looked to be having a great time, and most importantly, I haven't been attacked by a villain in days. Looks like my luck is finally starting to. I felt an arm go around my neck and I knew for damn sure that it wasn't any of my classmates. Tsunova, you know what? Fine. What do you want, Shigaraki? Make it fast, I'm really not in the mood for this. I was half tempted to just smash his head in immediately, but I decided to humor him for now. A quick analyze proved that he was only a little bit stronger than the last time I saw him. Tisk, typical arrogant hero. My glare stopped him from going on a tangent. Whatever, I just need to ask you something, maybe you know. Remember those Nomu? Of course, you do, you killed 2 of them. Well, what I want to know is, if they caused so much destruction before they were offed, then why does all anyone care of in the media is this Stain guy? You heroes, I can understand, it's your world, for now, but Stain is just another villain, right? Why does he get all the attention and not the lead? Was this guy an idiot? Right. He was a villain and probably didn't get out much. That's all? Well, that's easy, quite frankly, you're boring. I felt him tense. Good, better to make him angry and predictable. Stain had a high charisma stat. He knew how to sound convincing while standing on his soapbox. Killing a bunch of heroes was just a flashy attention grabber for most. If Stain just did that and had no other message or any charisma to him, then he would have been forgotten shortly after he was captured. So I have to put more points in charisma to get people to pay attention. Bunch of sheep. Why do they care so much for Stain though? He and I were basically doing the same thing, aren't we? Destroying the things that we don't like. A very simplistic outlook, not exactly wrong but nowhere near correct. If you want to cut out all the nuance, then sure. But the difference is that Stain made his point sound convincing. And in a way it was. There are plenty of heroes out there that I don't think deserve the title either. But the way he went about it, killing random heroes without hesitation or remorse. Nobody normal would accept that. Did some scumbags out there deserve it? Probably, but the way Stain went about it? Seriously, even I didn't know who Native was before he was attacked. Me, apparently, his grave Essen was not trying to stop a speeding car that robbed a bank nearby. Native's quirk is minor herbal communication. The hell was he supposed to do? Complain to the local oak tree about it? It would seem that I was the one to go on a rant this time. Though it was a justified one, even Shigaraki was giving me a raised eyebrow at the story. I knew that guy was a petty asshole. And trust me, I know the type. But damn, even I'm starting to feel bad about this Native dude. Well anyways, I think I have my answer now. If you try to capture me, just remember how fast I am and how many Michi. Shigaraki barely noticed the distortions in the air before his hands were separated from his body by 2 pieces of flat sheet metal. Fuck. Kurogiri. He called out in pain and desperation. It was far too late though. I had already walked up and held Shigaraki by the neck and proceeded to apply enough pressure to stop his blood flow, and by the way, he was wasting oxygen by thrashing around. He'd be out cold in a few seconds. You're even more of an idiot than I thought. Honestly, coming here alone and trying a stunt like this on me of all people, are you suicidal? A portal opened up just behind Shigaraki. I moved him out of the way immediately and caught a hand that came out of the portal, crushing it instantly and pulling to capture whoever it was that was trying to save the handless villain. You again? They never did catch you, Toga Himiko. Another quick analyze helped me understand why. Himiko Toga title. The Vampiric Yandere, plus 10% bleed damage and plus 5% increased knife damage. Level. 39 16 years old statistics. 200 HP 600 SPSTR. 14 AGI. 40. End. 20 int. 25 wis. 10. Sha. 80. Notable skills. Plus 200% bonus to stealth and sneak attack damage when hidden. Assassination, E, level 70. Acting, UC, level max. When quick is enabled, allies receive a 100% bonus to persuasion checks. Quirk. Transform, UC, level 45. Cost. The target's blood. Duration. Depends on blood amount. Swaps the user's appearance with a target. All relationship levels are also swapped during the transformation. It's interesting that she was able to avoid capture for such a long time. The question now is, why was she working with the lead? Why did I lose my hand? I let out a cry as a second portal materialized around my wrist and swiftly closed, releasing Shigaraki and enabling him to flee via a second portal that materialized directly beneath me. It appears that you are the easily distracted type. Or did you believe that after chopping off his hands, Shigi posed no threat? Her leader fled into the hills, and Himiko remarked, "Nice move by the way, I didn't know heroes were allowed to be so brutal." She seemed unconcerned about being left behind. Okay, I'll give you that, but what precisely was the plan here? Was Shigaraki expected to enter, threaten my life and everyone else's, and then simply walk out? You were, I suppose, meant to be my fallback in the event that I gained the upper hand. A concealed blade was drawn and thrust directly into my eye. Or it would have, had Toga not been significantly weaker than Stain, who could hardly even break through the outermost layer of my skin. The blade came to a stop the instant it made contact with my irises. You're quite the sly one. I say, my voice full of frustration from Shigaraki's escape and his attempt to blind me. And I can't get rid of your quirk as easily as the idiots. I'll have to make sure that doesn't happen again, I thought as I leapt straight into the air and barely avoided a portal that tried to open right under my feet. Nice try, but today I really don't feel like being abducted. Jing Shao. In a swift sequence, 3 runes were cast, cloaking Toga's body with a thin, but visibly visible, electric current that seemed to be doing no harm at all. I launched the villain onto the ground after landing on a neighboring rooftop, making sure she remained in my line of sight at all times. There, that should interfere with any wireless signal devices you were probably wearing. You are now to remain silent as the police arrive at this location. Is that something you can do? You broke my hand out. Given that I stabbed you the last time, I suppose that's fair. Even though I believed you weren't as interested in hurting people as you were. I was ending that right then and there. Nope, all of those rumors are unfounded and uncalled for. Being a masochist wouldn't even make sense for me now that I hardly ever feel pain. Was that yandere title more accurate than I had assumed? Oh boy. The blonde unexpectedly stopped talking and paid close attention. It was just a poor joke that went too far and was misinterpreted by the media. Now that you don't seem to be interested in keeping quiet, could you please respond to a few of my questions? Do you really want to work with that schmuck Toga-san? I was genuinely interested because, based on what I could gather, Shigaraki had the appeal and relatability of a 1960s-era villain who twirled a mustache. Assuming even that, it seems that she thought the nickname was humorous. Well, I don't really care about asterisk snort Hansi. I just joined because I heard Staney was part of their group and I admired him. I guess I support anyone who tries to replace the current world in which we live. For those who aren't normal, or whatever, the present isn't fun. Well, it looks like she was duped, but why she did it is a little unclear. Then, a falsehood. According to what we've been told, Stain never worked for the League and, in their first meeting, attacked Shigaraki out of disgust. And when you say, replace our current world, what do you mean? I believe we can both agree that the current situation is far from acceptable, she said, her calm expression of attention giving way to one of surprise. Is what you've heard so shocking? Not even heroes, though. Heroes in particular are acutely aware of the imperfections in the world. Even with all might present, such things were never questioned by those who looked more closely at the world because far too many people fall between the cracks and end up as regrettable statistics. Some people lived blissfully unaware of such things, but the majority of people were aware of the reality. The worst thing about heroes is that they were inherently reactive, they were neither flawless nor omnipotent. What sets me apart from those heroes is my intention to make positive changes in any manner that I can. I'm sorry to break your illusion, but using crime, violence, or domestic terrorism as persuasive tools is abhorrent. Such actions won't bring about real, lasting change. Instead, they will only inflame the resentment of those who notice them, turn their so-called fake heroes into martyrs, and undermine their entire cause in the eyes of the majority of people. Much to my increasing unease, I hope she didn't take what I said the wrong way when I called out to the girls who have been messaging me through the group chat system ever since I jumped out of the mall. Looks like we got company. Feel free to come out, girls. This one has been taken care of and we're just waiting for a hero and the police at this point. Toga blushed heavily and began wriggling in place. Deku-kun. Is there ever a dull day when you're around? Who is this girl? Then? Furthermore, why is her hand broken? I don't like the way she's looking at you. Is she one of those overly clingy fangirls? Ochako remarked as she and the rest of the Deku party TM entered. She inquired, not anticipating a response. I adore Midoriya-kun so much. Or is Deku just a cute moniker for him? That's Deku-kun. He's just so awesome, especially covered in his own blood. The blood-loving blonde had just raised a red flag, and the other girls shuddered. Why do aggressive blondes and Izuku-kun go together? Momo muttered. First Bakugo-san, now her. If it weren't for the sudden sirens they heard in the distance, she would have continued to chastise Toga. Looks like the police are finally here. We should escort this girl there. She probably needs a doctor to look at that hand too. Oh right, I won't lie. For a brief moment there, I forgot I had this quirk. I was going to regret this, wasn't I? Stupid heroic mercy. I kissed the hand, and instantly the broken bones started to mend and Toga's HP returned to full. I was disappointed to see that she did so without hesitation and with a manic grin on her face. I just did that to heal you and it was the least awkward place to kiss, so don't look too much into it. Avoid looking into it, I said. Give up laughing so much, and please don't even consider stabbing me again. I'm pretty much impervious to knives at this point. Magical, mystical blades with anti-healing and fuck you damage don't count. You say that, but you could have just let my wrist break and suffer. You gain some points for behaving like a true hero, and the hand kiss was also helpful. Your girlfriends should watch you carefully if they want more people to join them. Fortunately, the police showed up at that precise moment to break up the awkward conversation before it got any worse. The young officer, who was undoubtedly a rookie given his age, interrupted himself mid-sentence to express surprise at the scene in front of him. We came as fast as we could. Do you need assistance? Am I missing something? Why were several high school students standing casually next to a dangerous and well-known criminal, acting as though everything was okay and secure? It's because I've already arrived and eliminated the threat. I could not resist quoting All Might, saying, besides, you shouldn't undervalue UA students even without me here. Toga Himiko has been subdued, and Shigaraki Tamura is essentially quirkless for the time being. All we need is your permission to admit her and provide a report. Yes, and just as a formality, I preemptively request a citizen's arrest and claim self-defense. But if you used your oddity to catch a bad guy, wouldn't you still be charged? Not that the charges would stick probably, we're aware of your unique situation, the poor guy stammered, obviously taken aback by my nonchalant tone. Not all the specifics, of course, but UA had a few of the beans after the stain incident to keep the police happy. In a technical sense, I didn't use my quirk to capture them both. After using my peculiarity to threaten me and numerous civilians, I attacked Shigaraki, but after that, I just used my physical strength to hold him down. Granted, he did use his rune magecraft to tamper with Toga's technology and Recovery Girl's quirk to heal her, but one of those uses wasn't a quirk and the other was protected by the Good Samaritan laws, so he was still okay. All subsequent uses of my quirk were for transportation, which I have a license for. Well, I think I should discuss this with the chief. He admitted haltingly, I always hated the legal side of everything. But he wouldn't have to wait long because two well-known faces soon appeared. Did Chief Suragame and Detective Tsukachi personally come here? We made the decision to handle things ourselves after learning that a specific UA student had run into problems in the area once more. And sure enough, here we have Midoriya-san once more, caught in a sticky situation and undoubtedly eluding the letter of the law in order to apprehend villains once more. I felt bad for the guy because he seemed like a good guy who has been handling the enormous amount of paperwork that I have undoubtedly created over the last few months. I'm getting too old for this shit, woof. What a dumb doggo. Hold your head high. Toga's seemingly carefree and upbeat demeanor was beginning to frighten everyone. She seemed to be treating the situation like a game, but those with superhuman senses and magical analysis abilities could sense that she was secretly shaking with fear. Pity struck me hard. Sure, she was a villain and probably a killer, but this was just sad. I guess she never thought that she'd be in such a precarious situation when her allies had a warper in their pocket. But here she is, being left high and dry while her supposed leader ran away. Midoriya-kun, please accompany us so that you can make a statement alongside the other heroic students present. This was supposed to be a laid-back outing, so the rest of your class is free to head home as they weren't involved in this. Whoops, I can already feel the girls glaring at you. It's probably too much to ask for something like level locked. You'll earn it eventually. Nani? But if I had a luck stat, I would say, sorry everyone. He would appear to need to delve further into that book of rules that he was given at the beginning of this. After 50 or so levels, who knows what might have changed. It's time to discover what he has been lacking. Holy shit, I'm already level 70. I really need to keep up with my stats more often. These new features are damn useful too. Unlocking the ranking system was a system that, had I paid attention, I would have unlocked at level 60. It was written in bold letters on my rule tablet. There's only one way to find out. A ranking system this late into the game, does it take into account what I've done beforehand? The following are the rankings: Challenger, Elite, Champion, Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Iron, Wood, and Diamond. Skills in relation to the population are used to determine rankings. The top 10 billion people are in the plastic tier, meaning they are essentially ineffective at the task being ranked. The top 100 million people are in the Iron tier, the top 1 billion in the Wood tier, and so forth. After achieving Gold rank, rewards will be given once more for each subsequent rank. Additionally, each rank of Gold or higher comes with a special title. Population-based. Interesting, so I guess if I took wealth as an example, I'd be in the Bronze tier. Well, no use speculating when I have the solution right here. I thought to myself before pulling up my personal ranking list by swiping the screen. Hero rank. Elite. At this point, I really ought to be shocked. Rewards include Challenger, Wish X1, Elite, Tournament of Heroes ticket, Diamond, Time Rewind tag, One-time use, Platinum, Legendary Heroic Gacha token, and Gold, Epic Heroic Gacha token. Prince of Heroes, E. The world's greatest hero's legitimate second in command has been bestowed with this exceptional title. Gives the wielder 300% more experience points and gains demerits from any actions involving heroes or villains. Gacha tokens, and they seem to be limited to drawing heroic items. Those are definitely useful. That time rewind thing is also extremely useful. 5 minutes is enough to correct almost any mistake. A wish? Oh, like the Dungeons and Dragons spell. Looks like All Might's getting healed after all. I wonder if it also restores the remnants of One for All? I was about to continue my mumbling before stopping and letting it go. First, what is the Tournament of Heroes? This is a question for later. After quickly reading the item description, I almost choked on my own saliva. Shrink in half to be called to a heroically prestigious arena. A free-for-all competition will take place here, with a grand prize up for grabs for the victor. A mystical pocket dimension based on their preferences. Asterisk performance may determine the awarding of lesser prizes. When you tear off the ticket, local time is also stopped. Death is also temporary, so you shouldn't worry about missing any appointments. Winking face. Was written, with the final section appearing to have been penned by Asobi in exquisite handwriting. A competition open to heroes from all across reality. Indeed, I will postpone this one. It seemed obvious that the prince would receive that title, but I don't feel nearly ready for this. I changed to my new title after making my decision and proceeded to the other rankings. Magecraft rank. Elite, well, at least it confirms that I'm not the best Magecraft user. There were others who were. Rewards. Challenger. Instant Magecraft skill mastery ticket, Elite. Route to Akasha, Gold, Epic Magecraft Gacha token. Platinum. Legendary Magecraft Gacha token. Diamond. Random set of mystic eyes. A magus who excels in their field and in the eyes of other magi is bestowed with the unique title of Green. E. Increases experience gained by 150% for all Magecraft-related activities. A route to Akasha? That sounds dangerous, but a true magic skill would be invaluable. I'm just surprised that it wasn't a reward for reaching the champion tier instead. Since true magic was the pinnacle of a magus abilities, it felt strange to have it as a lesser reward than whatever was at the top. Wow. I'll have to do some research on different types of Magecraft to see which one would be the most useful to master. However, I noticed a trend with the Gold and Platinum awards. The title was excellent as well, but I'll save switching to Prince of Heroes until after I've done some research on magic. Academic rank. Diamond, that's right, I'm in the top 1000 in the academic world. Rewards. Diamond, random non-combat perk, Platinum, legendary non-combat skillbook gacha token, and Gold, epic non-combat skillbook gacha token. Gained the unique title. Fucking nerd. To put it plainly, you're a nerd. In the past, you were merely a hero nerd and would have gained experience points solely for your knowledge of heroes. However, with this elegant new title, all experience obtained through education receives a 30% increase. Non-combat skills seem interesting, but I wonder how far they can go. The title was obviously helpful, if a little specialized, just like the others. There's, seriously, next on the list. I was blank at the next ranking. It made sense in certain aspects, but this was still a bit excessive. Champion is the harem protagonist rank. I swear, I can hear people making fun of me. Rewards include Challenger, Romantic Express Share Device, Elite, Waifu Hiraiishin, Champion, Instant Trait Mastery, Soul Bond, Platinum, Legendary Charisma Gacha Token, Diamond, Mastery of a random charisma-based skill, and Gold, Epic Charisma Gacha Token. Acquired the unique title, Harem King, L. Well done. Fulfilled the desire of many lustful men and women. Sincerely, that ought to be sufficient compensation, but since I am a kind and merciful God, infinite stamina has been unlocked. But only when you are 0 centimeters away from a romantic partner. At least no overtly sexual objects or skills were on show. Just a few charisma stat-based skills, whatever they were, and an implied one. Immediately, deception, argumentation, and charm were mentioned. But those final few rewards, they were not like the others at all. The express distribution wasn't quite double, and it only functioned on people with a reputation level above 751 thousandths in a romantic relationship with me. I can share my gains with the girls. At least some of them anyway. It could also only be applied to one individual at a time. Even though it wasn't flawless, it was still a great tool that I would need to use right away. Hiraiishin, that's a technique from Naruto, right? It lets me teleport to anyone who I've tagged, limited by the same rules as the express share device. Definitely useful, it adds a whole new level of security along with the group chat feature. It was the final item that shocked me. Soul Bond, LVL Max. A legendary ability that is both strong and personal. The user has the option to connect their soul to that of their loved ones. This relationship is mutually exclusive and requires consent from both parties. Everyone is made practically inseparable as long as the bond endures. Even death shall not do you part. Only the extermination of the soul will break this connection. Warning: soul-based attacks now harm all bonded targets. However, bonded targets share soul durability and defenses cumulatively. I was embarrassed by this ability's consequences. Given the advantages, he could already picture some of the girls agreeing to what was essentially a magically arranged supermarriage. This wasn't a decision any of us should take lightly, so I would bring it up to the girls later. Yet, that permanent binding aspect and the soul weakness gives me pause. I have to get over this right now. There remained one noteworthy ranking to be completed. After that, perhaps the gacha will distract me from my thoughts. I made up my mind and continued. Wealth rank. Gold. There it was. I suppose it does account for non-liquid assets. Gold, Epic Resource Accumulation Gacha Token, is the reward. Unlocking the unique title, Teenage Green Millionaire, requires having amassed a net worth exceeding $1 million prior to turning 20. When active, all resource gains rose by 10%. That title is awesome. It should make moving up to the next rank much simpler. And a gacha item called Resource Accumulation. Interesting. Since there's only one, I might as well make use of it right away. A powerful soul gem is the Black Soul Gem. Able to take down an opponent's soul when their health drops to less than 5%. Thoughts for later. I picked up where I left off. Time for the academic rewards. Okay. Not the most heroic of items, but I guess it would be really useful against any immortal opponents that I run into. I hope that I never need to use it, but knowing who I'll be fighting in the future, I might just need to. Chemistry, in the perfected skill book gives the player instant access to the max level of the chemistry skill. Surgery, in the perfected skill book gives the player an instant max level in the surgery skill. Benefit. Polyglot, level max. With 10 hours of focused study time or 5 hours of conversation with a native speaker, the player can master any language with this skill. Alright, that last one was fantastic. Of course, knowing chemistry and surgery are also helpful, but being able to pick up languages so quickly is a superpower for a hero. I already knew a little bit of English and Japanese, which I could almost immediately pick up from just chatting with Pony. Then I ought to find out. Rune was a native of China, wasn't he? Aoyama from Class B was fluent in French. Once more, I shake my head. I'll jot down a detailed plan later. And now for the gacha tokens for Magecraft, Hero, and Harem King. Ability Book. Known Magecraft, a magecraft school centered on forming or calling aids. This time, the user gains experience points or the first level of the well-known magecraft skill. Having familiars meant having more work done with less effort and, if I can get it done well enough, an extra pair of hands. Note to self, look up viable catalysts for later use. Going blind was also an option, though it was probably a bad one given what I knew about heroic spirits. Speaking of a high enough level, servants are considered the highest form of familiar. Mastery textbook. Alchemy, L, an educational institution that centers its coursework on matter's flow. Gives the player immediate control over the ability. Outstanding. This is fantastic. With sufficient practice and knowledge, alchemy is the one magic that can effectively manipulate everything in existence, including weather, thermodynamics, natural phenomena, and cognition. It was a very useful ability for any magecraft practitioner to have. Lastly, there was the pair of eyes known as the mystic eyes of looting, E. These dangerous eyes have the power to drain the life force of anything that comes into the user's field of vision at a rate of 10 horsepower per second plus mana expenditure. The life force of the host will be used in its place if it is not being used actively. Oh, I'm so glad there's a way to avoid the draining effect. Although I don't need 10 horsepower per second, it's a very handy power to have. It's time for the Harem King rewards. A constant draining effect on anyone that I look at, excellent for single combat. The joke is that French, level 50 is the language of love. It's good to know that there were skill books ranging from basic to perfection. Skills. Power of the tongue, L, level 1. Your tongue is now an instrument of control and your voice is a thing of power. Any skill or ability used in speech receives a 5% boost, or a 10% boost if the skill is the subject of the conversation. Kiss of Life, E, in the perfected skill book is a skill that, at a 1:10 ratio, transforms the user's magical energy into HP for anyone they kiss. Combines well with other healing properties of a similar kind. And lastly, the hero abilities. Or the ones I'm willing to use at the time, anyway. This was the one I was most curious to see because I wanted to know what the game deemed to be a heroic skill. Skill book. Rally, E, level 1. The user of this skill can bolster those around them by using a war cry, a stirring speech, or just by striking a heroic pose. A 1% increase to each witness's stats. So that I can actually make the rule of cool a real thing. Fantastic. Ability book. None for All, L, level 1. Enables the user to draw a circle that is 10 meters in diameter around themselves. No creature in this range is allowed to use any powers or abilities, encompassing the user as well. And lastly, the wish. I'll keep it short and sweet, thinking back to the terrifying tales of people who attempted to munchkin a wish for anything. I'll just use one of the effects that are impossible to mess with, guaranteed. The only problem was that, as far as I could remember, there was no healing spell that could heal All Might's injury. It was a resurrection necromancy spell. Which meant that Toshinori Yagi would have to pass away before All Might could be healed. Young man, I trust you with my life. Let's do this, thwack. His doctor gave the top skeleton a hard blow to the head, once more. Recovery girl chastised the top hero, saying, "You reckless moron, don't just agree to die so easily. I trust Midoriya-kun as well, but you should at least hear the specifics before agreeing." Then she turned to her student. "Now, can you please explain this resurrection power that you've come across? The specific wording will help. It's a one-time thing. At least for now, it allows me to revive anyone who has died in the last century that didn't die from old age. The target is revived to its prime state, all diseases and poisons are cured, and any wounds or missing body parts are closed and grown back. The whole process takes about an hour of concentration. That's about it," I clarified, citing the description of the resurrection spell. The elderly hero made a valid point. It would come down to wording and I wasn't sure who would make the final decision. I suggest that we wait until such drastic measures become necessary before trying it. As of right now, Toshinori is in no real danger and based on your description this ability wouldn't restore one for all anyways. It is not a natural part of his body, so if anything it may treat it as a disease to cure. Or if they would be in our corner. It was strange how the seasoned hero could be so indifferent to his own mortality. A fair enough recommendation. While I'd love to fix this broken body, I suppose it would be best to keep using it until I succumb to something the regular way. Or at least until it becomes so useless that I can no longer help others. He's probably been thinking along these lines for some time. It makes sense, older heroes generally have a very real awareness of their own mortality. All Might had been battling crime and all for one for the past 40 years. His time would come, whether it was through age or injury. It therefore made sense that he would accept his successor's offer of a route to a healthy body with such ease. I asked my mentor, who grinned and paused for dramatic effect. We'd need to prepare for it anyway. By the way, what was that surprise that you mentioned? Something about an island vacation. What? The following day, a private jet as we took off for I-Island, I said, nice jet, though wouldn't it be faster for us to just run here? I continued, taking a sip of my carbonated beverage, we can fly and are way faster than this jet. It seems that altitude changes still caused your ears to pop even with hyper-durability. We could, but we can use the time we have on the plane to relax and plan the day. Plus, we'd probably be swarmed by the paparazzi the moment we arrive. You're right, I had forgotten some of the drawbacks of being well-known. I would be too tired from the run to maintain my form all day. Even though I was still nowhere near as famous as my mentor, I still had my fair share of fans. If you want, I can distract them while you sneak away in your skeleton form. You don't really need to be seen in public until the actual I-Expo starts, right? That would help me divert some of Toshinori's attention while he slept ahead of the party. Tempting, very tempting, young Midoriya. But no, even if I technically have no obligations to fulfill, I still should keep up appearances as the #1 hero while I still can. That being said, I'll take you up on your offer to help lighten my load. Have you come up with an autograph style? The greatest hero asked the student whose sweat fell. No, I hadn't. After an hour and numerous signatures, I started to perspire just thinking about what the crowd would be like in a few days. I had no idea that it would be that bad. Even with the crowd splitting their attention, we almost got run over, and the expo isn't even open to the public yet. At least he didn't try to kiss me, poor All Might. Apologies, young Midoriya, I didn't think we'd be stopped for so long. If anything, our combined presence might have made it worse. We're in terrible danger of being late. That made me feel better. Late for what? That's right, I forgot to mention that I wanted to drop by an old friend of mine. Sorry to spring it on you, but do you mind coming along? A colleague of All Might? Yes, I was willing. All Might winced, virtually confirming the latter. Yeah, I just had one question. Are they aware of One for All? Or should I keep quiet about it? All Might stopped and turned to face me when he heard the non sequitur. I see. I just wanted to make sure. Pogo stick? A pogo stick wielding young blonde woman leapt toward them. Was that all she said, Uncle Might? Given that she power glomped All Might, who easily caught her, it is obvious that they knew one another. She exclaimed joyfully, laughing along with the massive man who made a comment about how much she had grown. It's been so long, Uncle Might, I'm so glad you could come. It's nice to meet you, I'm Midoriya Izuku. Melissa-san, was it? I said, extending my hand to the girl who used it to safely jump off All Might's shoulders. I didn't know you had a niece, sensei. All Might had not. He was even perspiring over the fact that he had never talked about David or his family with me. Uncle Might's successor, it's an honor to meet you. And please, just Melissa is fine. Any friend of Uncle Might's is a friend of the Shield's. He's my honorary uncle, by the way. I'm sure he's told you about my dad by now. Fortunately for him, I could pretend to be a hero nerd and act like he did. A little here and there. Sensei and I haven't known each other for more than a year, and it's been a busy one. I heard bits and pieces about him, but I'm glad that I get to meet you both properly. By the way, was that a nanotech pogo stick? Or was it some kind of very realistic hard light construct? I shifted the topic, and fortunately Melissa didn't question the matter. She became excited at the idea of having a conversation with her uncle's replacement. You noticed? Come on, we can walk and talk. My dad is about to get off work, and if we move now we can catch him before he leaves. Particularly after she caught a glimpse of my assortment of gadgets. Nevertheless, I had to make it clear that they were more quirk-based than anything else. That's right, I heard that your quirk was rather extreme. Ultimate adaptation, such a powerful ability. I'd almost call what you can do magic, but then again the same would go for a lot of quirks. She laughed nervously. Fortunately, All Might was also present. Occasionally he would interrupt to steer the conversation in a different direction or slightly away from my eccentricity and toward more mainstream subjects. As in whether any other University of Alabama students would be present. One that I was pleased to respond to. I know that Momo-chan is coming, and she gave her 2 extra expo tickets to Abara-chan and Pony-chan. I gave my +1 to Ochako-chan. I also know a few of my other classmates are coming too, but I'm not sure how many of them got invites. Todoroki-kun probably did, and maybe Iida-kun too, since they're from famous hero families. I remembered everything clearly, grateful for my improved recall. Izuku, you have some famous names in your class, but I guess you're pretty high up there too. You have some family names in Endeavor. Ingenium, right? They're called Todoroki and Iida. That made me laugh, but it wasn't nervous laughter. I guess, I'm still not used to it, to be honest. Just a year ago I was just the bullied quirkless kid and now I'm All Might's apprentice and a UA student. It's been a wild ride and I'm still adjusting to it. A rasping sound interrupted my thoughts. Yes, that was not widely known. For context, I gave her a condensed version of my early years. I would have never guessed. That explains why you seem so down to earth though. You've been in both worlds. If we met while we were younger I probably would have been jealous beyond words. I used to dream of being a pro hero but gave up on the traditional path since I was quirkless. Melissa had the opportunity to share her life story. Her story left me speechless. This girl had found her own path. Instead, I decided to follow in my dad's footsteps, studying at the academy and developing my own support gear. That way I could be a hero in my own way, by using science to help the pros and make life better for everyone. In a manner that many would consider more grounded than my childhood's unwavering resolve. It was comforting and uplifting. Realizing that I still had a route open to me had I considered it, even if I hadn't been so fortunate with One for All or The Gamer. When they finally arrived at David Shield's workplace, we were greeted by the squirmy-fingered scientist and his partner Samuel Abraham after a brief period of silence. David stopped himself before uttering the name of his best friend, Toshi All Might. Recalling that Toshinori wanted to hide his identity from most people and that Sam was present. Fortunately, not many people saw the near slip because All Might's entrance was, to put it mildly, boisterous. It was sweet to see the two best friends get back together and laugh together. The enormous man patted his partner on the back and said, "Young Midoriya, let me introduce you to someone incredible. I'm sure you've heard of him, David Shield, my old partner in stopping crime." I thanked him and held out my hand, which he gladly accepted. "The legendary scientist that made your costumes among other amazing technologies. Last I heard you even won a Nobel Quirk Prize. It's an honor to meet you, sir." No, sir was the other sidekick. But in all seriousness the honor is all mine. I couldn't believe it when I heard that All Might was getting a legitimate apprentice. A successor to the mantle of the symbol of peace. But after seeing what you did during the sports festival, call me a believer. I felt a little embarrassed by the compliment but understood what he was talking about. Endeavor was the closest hero to All Might before I arrived. Yes, in my quirkless youth, I also didn't believe All Might could have a true successor. Well, in terms of power, a few promising American heroes were pretty close. However, none of them possessed Toshinori's overwhelming presence. Not to mention his extensive background and worldwide clout. Until recently, the top of the hero world was a lonely place. I tried to be humble, making sure to emphasize that this wasn't a one-man show by any means. I'm trying my best. Still, I don't plan to hog the limelight on my own. I have plenty of classmates with amazing potential. The hero world's future is going to be a bright one, with or without me. They appeared to value that. All Might's coughing fit somewhat cut into the pleasant mood. I was shocked to learn that others understood what it meant as well. In an attempt to get away from him and All Might, he said, "Hey, Melissa, why don't you show this young man around the island while All Might and I catch up? You should head on out too, Sam, you earned a break." Thus, he is aware of the slender form. I decided to comply for the time being, and I did exactly that. I urged Melissa to follow, and she did so with only minor confusion. That sounds like a great idea. This place is huge and even as fast as I am I'll need a native to help me see everything. Let's go. We might even find some of my classmates, I said. She made a quick plan, trying to keep up with me. Sure. We can start with the main support item exhibit and grab some lunch from the cafe before continuing. It also seemed like the most likely places to find my classmates were those two locations. We found him again. Quick, get the camera before I grab Melissa and launch myself out of the gathering crowd in a burst of speed. Look, it's Izuku Midoriya. Hey, can I have an autograph? Startling her to the point where she let out a startled, then excited, scream. After being knocked out of her adrenaline high, the blonde said, "Sorry about that. I thought they gave up after jumping All Might and I the first time. This might just be our safest way to travel. Can you point me towards that exhibit you mentioned?" And pointed at a building with a cylindrical glass entrance. The fact that I-Island's technological marvels lived up to the hype didn't surprise me. He wouldn't question why each one had an aquatic or research-based use, asking instead, "Well, that deep diving suit is awesome and all, but why the aquatic angel theme?" Ironically, an artificial island home to super scientists. We turned to see Ochako, Pony, and Momo standing behind us, all of them looking amused in different ways. "Looks like you're having fun, Deku-kun." It didn't take you long to find another beauty to talk to. Hi, I'm Uraraka Ochako or the reverse in the rest. Right, Pony-chan? The news stunned Melissa before she recalled that small detail from the rumors surrounding All Might's successor. Guess I was right. Hey girls. This is Melissa, my new friend who's showing me around the expo. Melissa, these are my classmates and girlfriends, Ochako, Pony Tsunodori, and Momo Yaoyorozu. In all honesty, her new friend was a real beauty in more ways than one. I heard these kinds of relationships existed, but I never thought I'd see one for myself. Though I guess it makes sense. His rosy-cheeked girlfriend appeared to be quite eager to share the bounty as well. Melissa shook herself back into the conversation and gave a proper introduction. The hero students enthusiastically accepted her offer. It's nice to meet you. My dad and Uncle Might are really good friends, which is how I met Izuku here. I hope we can all get along. How about we grab some tea at the cafe? We can get to know each other better over snacks, she said. After a few absurd stories and minutes come on, these were the 4 best-ranked heroes in Japan. And that's more or less how my finals went. I know I shouldn't say this, but I was a little disappointed. I understood it was a little unfair, but was asking for a respectable challenge too much? Yes, Endeavor caused me some minor harm. But since I could heal in a matter of minutes, that hardly qualified as difficult. Okay. I was already convinced earlier, but this is just ridiculous. How are you still just a student? Don't they have some kind of accelerated course for hero prodigies or something? Yes, but I couldn't begin it until I received my temporary license. I didn't even consider the other methods because they were so much shadier. I recognized that voice when it said, "Thanks for waiting." I said to the 2 Class B members who were ostensibly attempting to be waiters, Kaminari-san, right, and Mineta-san, what are you 2 doing here? Which already provided me with a reasonable understanding of their whereabouts on the island. Mineta clarified, essentially confirming my suspicions. The island needed extra staff, so we signed up to work. We get some extra pocket cash and free entry onto the island, and we're allowed to explore the expo on our break. It's a pretty sweet deal, despite the fact that we were all aware of their hidden agenda. Mineta called out, catching Kaminari's attention, plus there's a chance that we get to have some passionate encounters with there's one right here, as soon as he noticed Melissa. They changed to a whisper, trying, unsuccessfully, to appeal to me. Yo Midoriya-san, who's the blonde bombshell? Introduce us. Come on, don't be greedy, you already have 4 ladies in waiting. Not that anything I said would change that much. I could hear the girls whispering to each other, and Melissa was already getting the lowdown on the 2 students who were perverted heroes. If you're going to work on our island, then you're going to do it right. I refuse to let you 2 give anything but the best impression of UA students. And there she went, Iida, cutting right through the discussion and picking apart the students in Class B. Hello to you all. My family was invited to the expo, but they were busy. So it's just me. I've been trying my best to keep these 2 in line. Along with that explosive rapscallion. Boom. That's probably him. I sigh and finish my drink, thinking, probably, I've been around Kachan for long enough to recognize his explosions even from this distance. We might as well investigate the source of the commotion. We've moved from the negative end of neutral to the positive end in our relationship, and for that I'm grateful. I can now approach the man without fear of being charged and abused right away. Forward motion. I rushed ahead to see what was happening because I was the fastest of us. A timed robot fighting course. Interesting. The explosive boy appeared to have just completed the course, clocking in at a quick 15 seconds, putting him ahead of the other competitors. I see now that he was aware of me. Deku, just get it over with and beat my score. Just know that I'll beat you, no matter how long it takes. Wow. Even though our relationship has somewhat improved, I never anticipated Kachan to admit such a level of weakness. Having stated that, he looks confused, so I point to the field he just left and say, no thanks, it wouldn't be fair with the kind of quirks I have. Besides, I'm not the only one you need to worry about beating. The only hint of what was to come was a sudden chill in the air. The general area was filled with the sound of ice clinking and speeding, but it was soon overpowered by applause and the announcer's exclamation, 14 seconds. Incredible. Todoroki had narrowly beat Kachan's score. This was going to be bad. This day is going to be long. I had no idea that would be a huge understatement. I really need to organize my inventory. It's nice that they let me wear my hero costume for the expo along with All Might. I had a ton of clothes and accessories in there, but they were dispersed among a bunch of weapons, ingredients, valuables, and plain old garbage that was only there to be sold for pennies on the dollar. It makes sense, you're his apprentice and likely the future #1 hero. Having you show up in your costume would draw a lot more eyes than with some fancy tuxedo. Actually, if you don't mind, I have a favor to ask of you. Melissa asked, appealing to Izuku's attention. The hero was being shown the fundamentals of her work at the academy by the two as they briefly spent time in the young inventor's lab. I said, sure, what is it? And didn't mind helping a friend out if it wasn't something drastic. Melissa went over to a hidden compartment and took out a red wristband before continuing. Given Melissa's expertise in size-changing nanotechnology, it was probably something much more spectacular. This is my latest invention, or a prototype of it anyway. Initially, I made it as a way to help Uncle Might. It works by helping the user control their energy output while cushioning and absorbing the backlash of anything they might do. Of course, this also works as an armor against external blows. The ultimate armor, basically. Melissa clarified, which caused my eyebrows to rise to the maximum. A suit of armor capable of withstanding the might of All Might. That was really amazing. When we went all out, All Might and I could, by extension, produce force that could literally break mountains. It is mind-boggling to think that such a small piece of armor could absorb so much power. Understandably, in exchange for such a practical piece of equipment, I would have to publicize the fact that Melissa created it. I want you to have it, more specifically, I want you to use it as part of your costume. Part of the reason why is pretty selfish, I'll admit. Having you use one of my inventions for hero work would reflect on me, and probably accelerate my education along with bringing opportunities for funding and expansion. That was certainly equitable. I smiled at her selfless reasoning. Melissa wanted recognition, sure, but her main goal was the betterment of everyone. Melissa said, but mostly I just want to have a way to supply this technology to the wider world. So much good could be done with it, both in the world of heroes and in the civil sector. It's my best chance of truly earning the title of hero while playing the role of a scientist. It made his response simple. I would have used this for protection even now, but it would have been extremely helpful back when I was still breaking bones from going all out. Of course, I'll wear it with pride and make sure that everyone knows just who made it. Especially if I can use some runecraft in conjunction with it. If I tried, I might even be able to get it to fix itself. Thank you so much, I'll make it worth it for you, I swear. In fact, after I graduate, would you like me to make more of your equipment? Every great hero needs great tools and someone to make them, right? I grinned at the thought. She was correct after everything. I would be on my own after graduating from the University of Alabama. Well, I would have access to All Might's resources, including his assets, but I would still require labor to handle all the little details that come with being a hero. Paperwork, buying equipment, getting legal counsel, accounting, etc. In addition to being a close friend, she is a top graduate of the world's most prestigious science and engineering academy. That would greatly benefit my future professional endeavors. Melissa settles down and gives me a smile, but then she looks at the time and realizes we're going to be late for the party tonight if we don't move now. I appreciate OFA's blazing speed. Ochako teased me when I arrived, and it didn't help that I had brought Melissa with me in a bridal carry. You two made it. Geez, Izuku-kun. It hasn't even been a full day and you're already spending hours alone with Melissa-chan in her room. It's not every day that I can make you blush like that. And no, seriously, nothing happened. I know we're in a pretty unique relationship, but I'd still talk to you and the others about bringing Melissa into it. Wow, I haven't stuttered in a while. Even so, I managed to control it, which is better than the incomprehensible mess I used to make when I got upset. Melissa excused herself to change into her formal attire as she knew what was going to happen. Defending herself against the jeers. I said, trying to cover for Melissa as she left the room, that's a beautiful dress, by the way, it looks amazing on you, pink and white are definitely your colors, and it was real compliment. Thanks, Momo-chan let me borrow it. She got one for Pony-chan too, but, oh, you almost distracted me there. So you admit that Melissa-chan is an option. Well, just know that you have my approval already. I'll try to convince the others while I'm here. Speaking of, they should be waiting for us inside. Ochako gave a wink before noticing Momo in hallway. Momo had made up her mind to wear a sleeveless, yellowish-green dress and white heels. She also wore an accessory studded with gold and rubies in her hair. And to finish, a thin choker made of gold. It looks great, but I'm surprised she chose that color, I said, anticipating her trademark red. But Pony was dressed pretty much exactly as I had anticipated. She wore a few other accessories in similar colors, such as bracelets and a choker that resembled Momo's, and her hair was pulled back in a ponytail with an orange and white hair tie. What surprised me, though, was that she chose to wear her hero costume instead of a formal gown. Pony clarified, observing my perplexity, I don't really like formal clothes all that much, plus getting my hero costume noticed sounded like a good idea. Fair enough. There were probably a ton of heroes, scientists, engineers, politicians, business people, and other influential people attending this party who could serve as scouts for future hero students. It was only natural for Pony to want to exploit that. Mineta and Kaminari sighed loudly as they entered the room, realizing their lost chance. Damn, why didn't we think of that? It would have been the perfect opportunity to show off our skills and cool costumes to the public. And maybe even get some fans overseas, they exclaimed. Not realizing that, in the first place, they neglected to wear formal attire. The two were still dressed in their earlier that day waiter attire. Though he was much more composed, Iida agreed that it was unfortunate they hadn't thought of the idea. That might have actually been a good idea. I am representing not only my class but my family as well. Wearing my costume and perhaps the UA logo would have served as a great symbol. Oh well, there's no use crying over a lost opportunity. Re-entering the room and continuing the conversation, Melissa urged her fellow blonde, "That's a really cool costume. I'm sure it will grab a lot of attention during the party." Pony-san, now sporting a stunning blue top, a white skirt, and a white rose accessory, she wore her hair up in a black bow, accessorizing it with a red hairpiece, oval gold earrings, and what appeared to be a snap-on choker in black and gold. To Iida's cutting hands and the admiration of the two UA wannabe Casanovas, who then proceeded to bonk. Innocently, Pony said, "Thanks, you look great too. I'm sure Izuku-kun loves it too." She may not have realized or cared that her words could be exploited as fodder for jokes. Nevertheless, I chose to accept it and gave Melissa the benefit of the doubt. It's better to accept a sincere compliment than to try to retract or dispute it. Blushing, Melissa made the decision to lead everyone into the main hall in an effort to ignore the jeers. After all, the reception was about to begin, and they would be seriously running late if they stayed any longer. I took a deep breath to brace myself as well, knowing that once I got there, I would most likely have to say a few words alongside All Might. That's strange, the door won't open. I wonder if there's a bomb planted there. Is it wrong that, even now, I would rather put an end to a terrorist threat than make a public speech? I quickly explained the situation for the benefit of the non-party member after reading All Might's message through the chat. Well, All Might has been captured and can't break free because of the hostages. We're on our own for this. Melissa-chan, do you know where the control center for the island's security would be? That is our first priority. If we shut it down, or even better regain control, then we could free the heroes and end the hostage situation in one move. As Melissa told me where our target was and how we could get there while the security system was against us, my mind was racing with ideas and potential tactics that I could change as needed. She also advised us on the best routes to take in order to get there as quickly as possible while avoiding detection. Which gave me three choices. Two, in all likelihood. The first, which I ignored as soon as it occurred to me, was to charge in with all guns blazing, breach the outer wall, and climb to the top in order to eliminate the terrorists as fast as possible. The obvious drawback is that they could use the security system to kill civilians if I was even slightly off, allowing them time to act. It was not even a choice. The second was letting Melissa guide the other heroic students and me up the tower in a cautious and slow manner so as not to draw attention to themselves from the terrorists. This was safer because of its covert methodology and the fact that I could monitor the others to ensure they were not injured or worse. Although I was very tempted to use this strategy, speed was an important consideration. The final concept combined the first two. By myself, I would sneak out of the building and run up the structure while the others ascended from the inside, using my speed and friction runes. While I would use covert takedowns and questioning to locate their leader, they would guard Melissa, who would serve as their guide. The earlier he was eliminated, the better. I tell the others about my plan while nodding to myself. I make sure to remind the girls to message me on the chat if they're in danger so I can teleport to them. They accepted the fact that I had developed the ability to teleport at this point without even registering a semblance of surprise. Okay, if you think this is for the best, do you have a way to get through these metal sheets, or would you like me to make a blowtorch? Momo suggested, and I said no, they would be too slow for what we needed, but I already had one of those. I knew a much quicker and more covert way to do it. I suppose this is a worthwhile skill to acquire, I reasoned, taking out my instant Magecraft mastery ticket and selecting material transmutation. I smiled. I knew this was the right decision, I thought, almost salivating at the skill's description. Level of material transmutation, L, max. Many talents unlocked and mastered. Maximum reinforcement, E, level. Level of control, absolute. Plus 2N per level plus 1 STR per level. Costs. Variables, greatly reduced owing to mastery. Increases the selected statistics of any object the caster chooses by up to 5 times. Maximum statistics. 10 per object. Change. E. Level. Max. Permits the user to add, subtract, or modify a target object's properties. Maximum output. All current object properties may be changed, plus a maximum of 10 new ones. 5 objects maximum at once. Costs. Vary. Mastery results in significant cost savings. Increases on a single object with contrasting properties. Total control is available. Plus 2 WIS and int for each level. Limit break. Gradation error, E. Level. Max. Gradation error has changed to become tracing, L. The user can now make nearly perfect duplicates of objects, including magical and chemical properties, instead of hollow copies. Depending on how accustomed the user is to the desired object, degradation and flaws may appear. Costs. Vary, somewhat lower owing to proficiency, further lower based on familiarity with the produced object. Control. Almost absolute. Only one parameter lowers the quality of the objects. Plus 5 WIS and int for each level. Holy shit, what a rush, I exclaimed, almost too strong to contain the power coursing through my veins, as I gained a significant boost to my internal magical power in addition to hundreds of stat points. I thought I was using a decent amount of OFA in base at that point, however, more crucially. I grinned and said, this might be my most useful power so far, morphing the tower's outermost wall into a hole just big enough for me to slip out of before it closed behind me. Runes are cool too though, I corrected, pulling on some newly constructed runic boots that were optimized for suction and friction to the point where they allowed me to climb the tower. It was then that I realized my nerdy tendencies of stacking powers against each other to see which was best survived my transition into a gamer. And of course, there's one for all. There are very few problems that can't be solved with the strength of a natural disaster at your fingertips. Maybe I should make a tier list? After the terrorist situation is solved, of course. Alright. Aside from the hilariously tense scenes, this is moving a little too easily. I just had to head to the main computer terminal, so I guess I shouldn't complain. I ran up the tower as fast as I could, but if I stayed outside for too long, there was a serious risk that I would be seen by either the terrorists or the tower's security systems. I open and close the tower's outer wall once more, then step inside and take a brief look around. I thought to myself, looks clear, but just to be sure, as I took out my inventory of infrared goggles and turned on alteration and reinforcement once more, extending visibility to the entire electromagnetic spectrum. My inner nerd would kill me if I didn't transform it into the shape of Geordie LaForge's visor. I stammer, looking around me 3 times as I walk, saying something like, so cool. Nothing in the infrared, still empty. Additionally, since radio waves are steady and low, no one is speaking. This is really strange. You would think that they would at least keep each other updated, but they don't. Something isn't right here, I thought to myself as I quickened my pace and moved to the location Melissa had indicated for the control center, carefully inspecting every crevice. Was this tower this large always? I'm pretty sure I've already passed this hallway 3 times. I used Analyze to confirm my suspicions that I had actually walked a full kilometer, since the flavor text mentioned that my eyes were playing tricks on me. I was immune to direct mental attacks, so it couldn't have been a hypnosis quirk. Perhaps a distortion of space-time. No, the bad guys could have taken anything they wanted without all this heat if they had a quirk that strong. Thus, there had to be a boundary or workaround that applied only to this region, indicating that I was most likely being watched by someone. -800. A voice spoke up all around me, unidentifiable, saying, so you aren't invincible, you've somehow just increased your endurance and defensive parameters through some means. Yet when those are bypassed you are just as vulnerable as any normal human. If there had been a speaker, I would have detected any signals. A figure with a modulated voice materialized in front of my face. Oh, how rude of me. I know you but you have no idea who I am. Allow me to introduce myself. I punched at it and analyzed it right away, but they vanished right before the hit. You are quite fast, but you can't beat the almighty speed of. I punched the air above and the ground below, saying, Schweinorg. Next time if you want to keep your secrets, don't reveal yourself to play around. Bringing down this side of the tower's 2 floors at the same time. You bent space to a limited degree at will, causing me to make the wrong turn each time while making it look like I was moving normally. But that manipulation costs you quite a bit of energy. I giggle as the ozone smell permeates the atmosphere. Given his name, I suppose I should have guessed that my opponent was magical. Furthermore, he was having to use more prana due to the higher volume. sufficient for me to follow it with my upgraded senses. Delaware smash. I shoot in the general direction of the energy's source. I heard a loud thud, indicating that my opponent was probably blown back into a metal wall. I guess you aren't all muscle like your meathead predecessor, and your skill material transmutation is truly transcendent. The ease of use, and the way you discovered so much about me from a glance, some insane level of structural grasping maybe? Swinorg was speaking from a crater in the previously walled area. With his epic level equipment, he is undoubtedly able to speak after such a blow. I sent him another chop, this time empowered by OFA, not answering his question. If blunt force proved to be ineffective, could a sharper blade of air work better? Well, perhaps his claim to be swift wasn't just empty words, I thought to myself as Swinorg effortlessly sidestepped the air blade and then released even more mana. Insane reserves as well, far greater than mine. Not that it made a big statement. I mean, I was barely what anyone would call a prana factory, operating on one full circuit and a few barely functioning ones at the moment. Wham! Swinorg attempted to encourage me, but he was confused when my response was limited to raising an eyebrow. Looks like the ruffians found your classmates. Oh my, it's only a matter of time before those children get hurt by the big bad villains. You should probably get there as quickly as possible. If you can get past me, that is. You're right about one thing, though. I need to end this quickly. But to be honest, I'm more worried about the terrorists than Kachan. I'll start worrying about him when the explosions stop. I activate OFA at 100% and stack my newly mastered reinforcement on top of it, multiplying all of my parameters fivefold, including durability. In less than a second, I smash into my opponent's body with my recently broken limits, saying, "This is as good of a test as any." Full reinforcement. 500%. So fast that not even a space warper, with their presumably superhuman senses and quick reflexes, could even more a muscle in reaction. His very prana moved in slow motion, failing to protect its master, rising just in time to absorb the second blow to the earth. The volleyball technique, which was derived from an old television program, was a lighthearted move that could be extremely harmful if executed by an individual possessing adequate strength and speed. Always coming at their opponent from a different angle, they never let them settle and regroup. This is also too easy. This guy isn't even trying to fight back, I think to myself as I deliver my last double-handed smash into the ground, breaking the metal with a second crack. I need a face, but I have a name. It's time to remove that mask. I heard a spark of electricity as my hand approached Swinorg's mask, but I chose to ignore it and simply yank it off. -9, -9, -9, -9, -9 crunch, I said to the jumbled mixture of metal, glass, wood, and flesh that was my opponent's face. Ah, that explains the suicidal attack. You were just a distraction. The first time this had happened, though it made sense in terms of magic, an automaton familiar with pieces of its master's flesh and stored mana to mimic a real person. Enough so that it even fooled my analysis. Impressive. It's kind of the whole circumvention of global law thing. I said, enough of this. I didn't even bother calling out my attack, just going full cowling and slicing the familiar in half from top to bottom, not caring that I might kill my opponent. Let's move on to the island security controls of the tower. After that stunt against Swinorg's familiar, stealth is out of the question, so shock and awe it is. After having that thought, I threw away all pretense of subtlety and raced around the tower until I saw David's shield restrained, who I could only assume was the main antagonist behind this terrorist plot. A brief examination verified the suspicion that he had a metal quirk because of the large amount of metal on his body in the dark photo. The handgun was explained by the villain's fairly strong ferrokinesis quirk. A single bullet would be much easier to control than several dozen that an automatic weapon would fire. As I shot toward the man brandishing a gun at my teacher's closest friend, I thought about all of this. I was moving at a reasonable fraction of the speed of light. First, cut off the hand holding the gun. I decided to remove a simple stick of plastic that was thin, sharp, and most importantly not metallic to make sure the cut was clean. The briefcase is probably also important, but taking care of the thread comes first. Pump. Arg. The villain's hand and his pistol fell to the ground, but I ignored it as I hurried to clear David's path so I could continue working without fear. I had to take my time so as not to startle him too much, but even so, I had plenty of time to sprint back and give the villain a straight kick to the stomach while he was still screaming about his missing amputation. Good work. You took down All Might by using the most advanced security in the world and the threat of hostages. Now what's your plan for me?